So there really was a man who wanted to marry Lady Laylaton, and the lady was brought the hot water she asked for. The maid was angry that she was not getting a response and was repeating herself, asked why she was holding the brushes and offered to touch up her makeup herself. No. The lady sighed in confusion, refusing. The maid offered her some water. She asked her to do so, but it was difficult to get warm water, so she asked her to drink it all. The girl thanked him, but through carelessness she touched the cup and knocked over the boiling water, scalding herself. "Lady, what are you doing?" the girl exclaimed indignantly. She almost burned herself. "Really? Be careful." The girl asked for a mirror. The maid smiled and asked, although she was displeased, but for her a wedding was a wedding. She pointed to the dressing table where she could go, and the girl did so, staring at her reflection. Seeing myself, I suddenly got a sharp headache, along with an influx of all my memories. The maid told the lady with displeasure that now was not the time to rest, and the ceremony was about to begin. "No swords, no blood, no corpses," she said. Stunned and crying with happiness, she asked them not to take it to heart. "And what was it?" the servants whispered, but no one understood, thinking that she had definitely gone crazy right before the wedding. But then the girl pointed to the maid and ordered her to open the door, saying that the Duke was coming. "What is she talking about?" she asked. "Why would the Duke come here, or could he listen to her?" The other one spread her arms. She sighed heavily as she said that they should follow her instructions, even though she was an illegitimate child, when suddenly the Duke entered the room. Turning to Rosanna, he asked if she had been crying. Her makeup was running, and the ceremony was about to start, so he told her to hurry up and fix everything. Even to the surprise of the maids she had interrupted, Rosanna addressed his lordship. She told the Duke that he had aged greatly. What did the man ask, alarmed and indignant? The girl was very sorry, but they would have to change their plans for today, Rosanna, he exclaimed. "Who does she think she is?" And with a smug grin, Rosanna informed the Duke that today's wedding was cancelled. Guardian of the Empire, a hero who defended the Empire for hundreds of years, a faithful dog. When the war ends and peace comes to the Empire, the Guardian must return to the endless darkness once again. A futile existence after which not even a name remains of you. A tiring life in which there is nothing but endless darkness. She wanted to stop this endless cycle, but to be honest, she just wanted to be free. Even with the hot wind blowing through her hair, and even if all that was left was burnt ash and a terrible smell, she still wanted to feel it. However, this is just an unattainable dream. At this time, she again plunges into deep darkness, but when it seemed that a lot of time had passed, consciousness returned. And this time everything was completely different, a place where there were no screams and the smell of blood. Just think, the seal in this world was broken. And only after looking in the mirror did she realize that she had woken up in a strange body, and along with the pain that she had never experienced before, memories came flooding back. The owner of this body is Rosanna Laylaton. She was the only princess, the daughter of a duke in the Empire. But her life turned out very unsuccessfully. Her mother, a commoner, abandoned Rosanna, who was conceived after a night with the duke. Although the Duke took her in, he had no warm feelings for his daughter, and Rosanna chose a political marriage to prove her worth. However, the Duke did not stop Rosanna, although he himself knew perfectly well what this marriage would ultimately lead to. And the last memory of this body was how it fell, unable to take a breath. Perhaps its very soul was broken. Just think that she called this fool father, hoping to be loved until the very end. Rosanna asked if he could hear her and repeated that there would be no wedding. The future groom, Marquis Giselia, was a pervert, and she can't stand them, so with these words she will go and explain everything to him. "What are you talking about, Rosanna?" the Duke shouted and reached out to the girl to stop her. As soon as he touched her shoulder, she gasped in sudden pain, although nothing terrible happened. Rosanna herself was surprised at why it hurt so much, and her father asked her not to pretend since he hadn't really touched her. The girl thought for a moment and grabbed the Duke's hand, who said in surprise that she was behaving unceremoniously. Rosanna asked if he could stand it, right? His lordship asked what she was up to anyway. But suddenly he became distorted with pain. His daughter said that today's wedding was organized only to strengthen the ducal family. She volunteered herself, but it was he who dragged her into this, she threatened. From now on, he does not dare involve her in his plans for personal gain. Pushing a person who is going to die soon anyway off a cliff instead of saving him is also considered murder. If someone needs this marriage so badly, then let him enter into it himself, and he himself is still in the prime of life. She smiled and asked him not to pretend, since she hadn't really had time to do anything with him. It seemed like he had it all figured out after all. He had always been a ridiculously smart man. Looking at the Duke's face, she concluded that about 10 years had passed since she was last sealed. However, there was no talk then about the Duke having an illegitimate child, as her existence was revealed only after that. Judging by the Duke's reaction, her strength was the same as in her past life, but her defense was weakened. Just take the moment with the boiling water and the Duke. First, we need to figure everything out, and then find out what really happened. She gained this freedom by accident and could not miss it. But suddenly she looked out the window and gasped in delight at how beautiful this world was. How lonely this child was in this beautiful world, she thought. From now on, they will love her always. She sighed nervously and said that she needed to calm down. She couldn't cry like this every time. She should see something amazing. First, she needed to meet with the young Marquis. Canceling the wedding was an urgent matter at the moment. The guests condemned the terribly prepared wedding hall if the bride was half-breed. She was still the Duke's daughter. But does this lady's wedding even matter? The most important thing is that the houses are united. Everyone had gathered here to win the Duke's favor, but suddenly they were attracted by someone's impudent behavior. They were surprised to meet the lady. Everyone saw her face. It seemed that she had had a good cry. The girl was amazed by the beautiful sounds, the beautiful precious stones on the chandelier, wonderful as the stars. And the scent of flowers carries the warmth of life, and everyone looked so happy. In the child's memories, everything looked hostile. But at least they intended to congratulate her today, and she was glad that she came here before meeting the Marquise. Even if the wedding is cancelled, she still has to express her gratitude, and said that they all seem to be having a lot of fun here. To be welcomed in such a magnificent and beautiful hall, she will never forget this day for the rest of her life. Someone from the crowd laughed at this, and some, alarmed, began to justify themselves to the lady, but she did not pay attention. And she said that everyone could go their separate ways. There was no need for further congratulations, because she was refusing this marriage. After a minute of reflection and silence, a commotion arose in the hall. People couldn't believe their ears. "Wait, the lady came out of the crowd," the man exclaimed. "Why is she acting so ignorant?" Even if she had gone mad, she should at least remain polite. This is not an ordinary wedding after all. Everything is for the Duke. "The Duke?" she asked again. The man sighed and asked her to forget, asking if the Duke even knew about her behavior and her words. "Yes, he knows," the girl answered calmly. Well, of course, he began to lament. Then they should go to him. But then it dawned on him that the answer was not what he expected, and he asked, stunned, what she said. "The Duke already knows everything," she repeated, and asked if there were any other problems. It was her wedding, so she would follow her heart. "No, that's it," he said, and realized that she was angry and seemed not to be joking. Perhaps Duke Leilaton had missed it all. It seemed that everyone was very afraid of the Duke. His power had changed greatly compared to what it had been 10 years ago. She still remembered how he whined that he was too afraid of dragons, and also refused to join the enslavement squad. While everything else has changed, the only thing that has remained the same is her, okay, enough sentimentality. When she woke up, she discovered that her abilities were preserved, but others had appeared. One thing was clear: her body was greatly damaged. However, her powerful energy was with her. She felt the presence of the young Marquis, which meant that her sense of smell had not disappeared either. This means that she could discern the presence of people whom this body had encountered before with good accuracy. The Marquis came out to Rosanna and asked if she missed him so much that she went looking for him herself, and he was even uglier than in his memories. She immediately said, "No, there will be no wedding, and the Duke already knows about everything, so the Marquis must also tell his father." "What?" he asked in surprise. "Rosanna, what are you?" "Not Rosanna, but Lady," the girl corrected him. They weren't even dating for real. It was just a political marriage. Shouldn't he know how to show respect properly? "What the heck?" he asked. Didn't she know how many people were gathered here? She knew, but her decision was the same. Calling off the wedding was better than any divorce. "Are you crazy?" the young Marquis shouted angrily, asking Rosanna if she had started this mess herself, wanting to help the family. But as soon as the wedding day arrives, she backs out, wondering what Duke Leilaton will think if she ruins everything. "Well, he'll think of her as a lady," Rosanna replied reproachfully. Why did no one understand what he was talking about today? He asked. The lady asked the Marquis why he himself did not understand anything now. She made it clear that he should not address her by her first name, but still stand his ground. He should relearn the basics of etiquette before entering into marriage. The man said irritably that she better stop doing something that she would soon regret. She chuckled, but first he needed to understand his own place. And as soon as he understands what kind of person he is, he himself knows perfectly well that he is not right for her. The young Marquis went absolutely wild and screamed, but he had clearly warned her. Don't do something she will regret and grab her so she doesn't dodge and swing. Not only is he a pervert, but he's also prone to violence. Not a bad combination. His fist is more like a soft loaf of bread. But if this body takes a blow to itself, it will hurt a little. So first you need to avoid the blow. But suddenly the young Marquis's hand was stopped. The man said that it was their business, and he did not want to interfere. But doing this to a lady is too much. The young man asked the lady if she was okay. What was that? Rosanna was surprised. These eyes. Can human eyes shine as brightly as precious stones? She gasped in response, and for the noble gentleman it was a relief, but were her eyes deceiving her? But somehow strangely, she didn't notice him until he himself approached. Even if she hadn't met him before, she should have felt his presence. Before she had time to think about who this man was, the young Marquis suddenly turned to Duke Varfus. There was only one Duke Varfus she knew, so that man was Chaitin. The Duke asked if he was trying to attack the bride on her first wedding day, and the young Marquis was even more trash than he could have imagined. The groom asked his lordship how he was here, and Chaitin interrupted and explained that he too had received an invitation from the Marquis of Giselle. And he asked, or did he want to say that he shouldn't have come? No, of course not, he answered, frightened. He gasped. His Majesty had sent him to the battlefield of the Civil War, hoping that he would die there. He was asking because he was still alive and had come to the banquet. No, he answered stutteringly. It was just a misunderstanding. Then what just happened was also a misunderstanding, asked the Duke. Lady Rosanna is the only lady of the Leylatin family, the great and eternal house of the Emperor, and to raise a hand against such a lady is simply unthinkable. As he knew, His Majesty was so cruel that he sent him, his nephew, to war, exposing him to mortal danger. And if he had heard of this incident, the young Marquis would have exclaimed that he never wanted it. Well, if the Marquis says so, then there is no reason not to believe him. Then he himself will inform His Majesty that the wedding has been cancelled. No, he himself, the young Marquis answered guiltily, and immediately ran away. No need to thank him, he told the lady, but Rosanna also asked his lordship not to thank him. Chaitin asked, stunned if she was repeating after him now. No, she replied. That's how she always speaks. If she had married, the House of Leylatin would have only grown stronger, and the Emperor's power would have become stronger. It wouldn't have been to his lordship's advantage, so she says he shouldn't thank her for ruining his marriage. That's why I'm saying it, the Duke repeated in his head, stunned, not quite understanding the girl. On alert, he turned to her, but suddenly his lordship was called out to from the side. The man said, His Majesty is calling him, God, Chaitin answered with a nervous smile. It seems that this time His Majesty also hoped to see his nephew without any limb. Seeing him alive, he would probably be disappointed, but turning to the lady, he informed her that he had to go for now. He wanted to congratulate her on her wedding, but now he could congratulate her on her divorce. Thank you, Your Highness, Rosanna said with a haughty smile, her tone embarrassing him, but it was still time to go. In any case, he was looking forward to the next meeting. It seemed to the girl that the Emperor had not changed. By this time he should have noticed that her soul was gone. Let's see how he reacts. At this time the Emperor was in hysterics, breaking dishes and shouting, Where the hell did they go? Who dared to desire what belongs to him, his hero, whom the gods themselves gave him, his gift? This body had no physical strength at all, Rosanne thought, and yet her strength remained the same. Strange. Over the past few days, she had become convinced that her heightened senses could still detect someone's presence, and her reflexes were still good. It might be because of the blessing, or it might actually be a problem, meaning the imprinting has not changed. When her true identity is revealed, she will likely lose her freedom again, something every member of the royal family should be wary of. Then no one will know who she really is. She needs to act carefully if she wants real freedom. Then we'll have to break this seal, but the problem is that she knows too little. She was born with stunning strength for no reason, abandoned by her parents out of fear, and went to her first war at 17. That was all she knew about herself the last time the seal was removed, 10 years ago, during the battle with the Black Dragon. Then perhaps the comrades she fought alongside knew something about it, but there was no need to rack her brains for answers, because the person who can answer if she asks is right next door. But upon arriving at the meeting, the man asked for forgiveness and said that at the moment the Duke needed rest. Rosanna had a couple of questions for the Duke, and the butler told the lady that she should address him as her father. He started to lecture her, but Rosanne said she had a couple of questions for her father and told him to take her to him. As a result, having clarified, the Duke allowed her to be let in. The lady pointed this out to the man and he asked her to enter. She immediately told the Duke, no, her father, that she had come on some business, and so she answered, he. The girl noticed his hand and asked if he had hurt it. Yes, the butler explained. On the day of her wedding with his lordship, there had been an accident in which he had injured his arm. On the wedding day, Rosanna asked and thought, is that the hand? Isn't that the one she shook then? Then the Duke asked if she hadn't said that she had questions for him, and he asked her to ask them quickly and leave. She had heard that a slave squad had been formed 10 years ago, and she wanted to know where those people were now. The father was surprised that she, despite refusing, had an interest in something like this, and he noticed her manner of speech. The daughter suggested not to deviate from the topic, and the Duke said that he would answer quickly, since there was nothing wrong with it. He began, and judging by his casual reaction, she thought they were all alive and well. But the Duke, destroying all hope, explained everyone is dead. Suddenly I remembered that no, one of the squad did survive, His Grace Duke Varfus. But everyone except him is dead, she asked. Precisely, her father answered. In such cases it is customary to send to the front those who are destined to die. But when? The girl asked in amazement on the way back, or... The Duke told Rosanna that it was none of her business, and she asked what was wrong with studying the affairs of the empire. Nothing bad, he replied, but he had already answered enough more knowledge would not benefit her or her family. He asked her to leave and not to dare mention anything they had talked about outside this room, even about his hand. Well, of course, she thought that they were all alive, yes, they were seriously wounded, but not fatally, and besides they were quite strong. And judging by the Duke's reaction, something is definitely fishy here, something significant enough to threaten the family's safety. It was necessary to meet with Varfus when suddenly a servant ran to the butler and reported that the guest had already arrived. The butler said that the Duke had no intention of receiving anyone, and the boy conveyed this to the guest, but he remained waiting in the reception room. The man asked who he was, since he dared to insist, and as soon as the guy declared that he was the Grand Duke Barthius, Rosanna jumped up. "Madam," the men exclaimed in shock, but the girl was already rushing to the reception area. It was necessary to get there before the butler, otherwise it would not be possible to talk to him in person. Finally arriving at the place, she opened the doors and addressed his lordship Barthius. The guy grinned. He was told that they were not receiving guests today, so he was about to leave, but it seemed that the Duke's daughter found a minute to talk with him. Rosanna said the Duke was unwell and she came in his place. Chayton appreciated the original way of greeting the guest. The man said that he had actually come here to ask him about the Duke's daughter, but since she was here in person, he would ask in person. Rosanna asked to continue, and the Duke asked the lady if she had anything to do with the sealing of the Black Dragon. She was worried that he recognized her. Varfeus was also of royal blood. She had to accept the fact that he could also feel her soul. She made a mistake in relying on feelings of camaraderie because they had been comrades 10 years ago. It seemed that it would not be possible to find out details about the enslavement squad, and deciding to play dumb, I asked what he meant. Chayton said that she could not deny it. He had already felt everything, and the guard thought that maybe she should kill him now. But out of the blue, the Duke sat down next to Rosanna and took her hand. "Why?" the girl asked. Yes, indeed. Last time everything was exactly the same. At the moment when he took the lady by the hand, the loud voice sounding in his head stopped. He explained that this was the curse of the sealed mad dragon. At the time he thought that it might be a mistake, but now he is absolutely sure. This is the effect of the sealed dragon, the lady thought. But where did he get this terrible curse from? And then Varfus expressed a wish that the young lady would heal him with this hand she asked when he was cursed. Ever since the dragon was sealed, he has always carried with him a special remedy to suppress this madness. Of course, he couldn't get rid of it completely, it was clear, but Roseanne didn't have much time. There is not enough time. She wants to throw him out. That is not the point, she answered. She will have to leave soon as this door opens. More than one person was pounding on the door, calling Madam Lady, but, "Oh well," said Rosanna, his words just now. She asked if he needed her, and the Duke explained that he was saying this with a pure heart. If he gets what he wants from her, he will never allow anyone to look down on this young lady again. He asked her how she felt about the idea, but Roseanne replied that she didn't care. She asked him to simply promise that in the future, no matter what, he would have to fulfill one of her wishes. Even if it touched the Emperor's head, amid the noise from behind the door, the Duke asked if she knew how dangerous it was, if the lady was serious. Roseanne said her father wouldn't let her meet him, so her plan was to let him see for himself. She said if he wanted to make a deal with her, he had to kiss her now. There was no better way to bind a girl and a man together than this. He could think of it as artificial respiration, if it made him feel any better. But it seemed that Chayton was not averse and pulled the girl towards him, and, asking to forgive him for a moment, he sealed their deal with a kiss. And after that day, rumors spread like wildfire through high society that Rosanna and Chayton had kissed. The Duke tried to suppress all the rumors, but shutting up the mouths of long tongues proved to be no easy task. The rumors even reached the royal family. Rumors said that the Leylaton family, once central to the Emperor's faction, would now be able to tie the knot with Grand Duke Varfus. "Why are you nothing but trouble?" the Duke shouted. "Why can't she behave quietly like before?" But he himself told her to do as she wanted. "But did that mean this?" exclaimed the father. Did she really think that by these words he meant to say that he was giving free rein to her desires, and didn't his words correspond to his actions? She asked. Then her father should not have said those words to her earlier, and ordered her not to call him father anymore. "No problem, Duke," she answered. "Rosanna," he shouted. In any case, he couldn't ignore this incident. She would be under house arrest for a while. Locked in the estate, although the incident was only in the living room, not even in the bedroom, the Duke still has a lot to learn, thought Rosanna. It doesn't matter, even if she doesn't answer. From the moment she called off the wedding on her part, his daughter interrupted him. He had been wearing this bandage for a long time. It seemed like she couldn't control her strength. She didn't mean to squeeze his hand so tightly. "What are you talking about?" the Duke asked Rosanna. He accidentally hurt his hand. She was really surprised. On her wedding day he became ill and injured himself. He is the Grand Duke of Leylaton. Does she really think that he was injured by her? But having injured his arm due to his poor condition, if he had grouped himself when falling, he would not have injured anything. He asked his daughter to stop messing with his head with nonsense, and asked if he hadn't already ignored the question about calling off the wedding. After such a stunt, she at least should not have created new problems for him. Only a little time had passed since her wedding. But she again plays her tricks on him and does such things with a man. His anger seemed to grow with every word he said. She told the Duke and advised him to learn to control his aggression. He was very angry, although she only expressed her concern. But now, as a reasonable person, he should control himself. Having spoken, the Duke sighed and said that perhaps His Majesty had already heard the rumors. Of course, thought Rosanna, she did it all on purpose. The Emperor will probably try to find her, but if she can find a way to break the seal? To do this, we must try to weaken the Emperor's power in order to protect the freedom he has been granted. House Leylaton is the only ducal house in the Empire, and also serves as the core of the imperial faction. If word spreads that the Duke is moving away from the Emperor, the other nobles will weaken their unity, but the problem is that she has been wearing a collar since childhood and has never even thought about cutting it off. They don't even think about how powerful the Duke can be. Still, acting first was the right decision. She spoke about this situation and her father asked if there was any solution. There won't be another marriage proposal, so why not announce her marriage to the Grand Duke? "Rosanna!" his lordship growled angrily and shouted at her to get out of his sight. At the same time, His Grace the Grand Duke was calling for an assistant. He didn't respond because he was deep in thought, so the knight had to shout. He asked if he was okay and why he was touching his lips in such a strange way. Chayton replied that he was thinking for a bit. "It's all about the Emperor," the man asked. He heard he kept him waiting all night again and in the end didn't even show up. While he was cursing at the authorities, the Duke again became lost in thought and told Paul that he had a question. The man said he would listen and answer all questions, and Chaitin asked what it meant when someone asked to kiss him. Yeah, right, Paul thought hard. He wants a kiss or something like that, but suddenly a realization hit him. And he asked, so he was at a meeting with the lady, and not the emperor, he was, the Duke answered hesitantly. At a meeting with the lady, yes. He, who had recently been on the verge of death, finally, this must be told, the Duke ordered him not to dare. But in any case, this lady is very brave. To be the first to ask for a kiss, Chaitin asked Paul to be quieter. He remembered that Paul was already married, he boasted, for 10 years already, and on the 3rd day after the wedding he went off to hunt a dragon. Then the Duke asked him if the girl was the first to ask for a kiss. Could she have feelings for him? For reference, her wedding had recently been cancelled. Judging by his words, Paul could say that everything could be because of his lordship. From her actions it becomes clear that the lady has feelings. Ladies will never ask a man they don't care about to kiss them first, and breaking off an engagement is out of the question. He asked his lordship what he thought, whether this was not the most important thing. Obviously, the situation is not the best recently. A problem with the dragon seal has arisen, and the artifact is gradually deteriorating. At this rate, he would either go crazy and kill everyone or commit suicide. But thanks to that woman, he managed to hold out for a few days. And after the kiss, even the noise that had not stopped for several days stopped. It is obvious that he definitely needs her, he told Paolo, so he needs this woman. It was boring. She managed to get enough sleep, eat well, and no one bothered her. Wasting time is really great. The lady was served dessert. The toast with jam looked delicious. The maid wished her bon appetit, and Rosanna thanked her. Another girl asked worriedly if it was really possible to have bread with jam, and the jar wouldn't even open. She's already timid, and now she got caught like this. There's nothing to say. Besides, if they had reported her, she would have been fired long ago. There had been rumors lately that she had changed somehow, so I needed to find out more about it. Even for her it was difficult to open such jars, the servant had only just said, when suddenly Rosanna opened the jam. How did she unscrew it so easily, the maid exclaimed in amazement. And hearing about this, Rosanna asked in surprise whether she shouldn't have opened it. No, the maid exclaimed anxiously, that is not the point. Rosanne realized that it was their responsibility to prepare the food completely for consumption, but out of habit she opened it herself. Here, she said, asking the maid to open it herself. And she will wait, forgive me, the girl asked. Rosanne repeated that she would wait until she opened the door for her. Yes, just a second. Could those strange rumors about her really be true? She doesn't usually act so troublesome. But for some reason the jar wouldn't open, no matter how hard she tried. She covered it slightly, so why didn't the lid unscrew? It's no use, said Rosanna. They're no good, just give it to her if she can't open it. The bread will get cold now. The maid thought that it sounded too much like an insult. Just think, she deliberately tightened it to make fun of her. She's trying to make her look worthless in front of others and just find a reason to scold her. What the... They all need to focus on strength training. It must be really hard to work when the body is so weak. To let the bread be left because of such a trifle. The girl asked if she should warm up the bread, but Rosanna said it was fine. She had already finished. The bread is delicious even when cold. They did a great job, and she said she would like to take a walk and leave the cleaning to them. She ate her fill after the dried fish and cured meat. Everything seemed delicious. She even ate the toast with a huge layer of jam. A beautiful garden, and the others don't care. They just pass by in their carriage. So she should appreciate all the beauty at its true value when suddenly... She immediately jumped up and in the blink of an eye grabbed the falling chick. How careless. What a blessing that he wasn't hurt. She noticed the nest from which he had fallen, and, asking him not to worry, said that she would help him up. With a light jump, with the grace of a cat, she grabbed the branch. Then she climbed onto the first and second branches. And finally, she reached the nest, like a predator. She could tell the chick was scared, even though she'd only captured it with her lips for a moment as they climbed up. He was a little sweaty, but no big deal, and she returned him to the nest, looking back at the unfolding view. She decided to look a little more at the lands she was protecting. Finally, she could see it. Now, when no one is looking for her anymore, but as soon as she said this, the lady was immediately called by the servants. They were shouting worriedly about how she got there. They were very sorry, and asked her to just come down. Rosanna asked them to stop distracting her and get back to work, but the maid said that they would bring help now. Can't ordinary people climb trees? And what would they do if a monster or an enemy was chasing them? But oh well. From now on, it would be better to refrain from climbing trees. But then the Duke shouted to Rosanna what it meant, and he worriedly ordered that Rosanna be removed from there immediately and that no harm should be done to her under any circumstances. Yes, the situation had escalated, and now it was impossible to pretend that she could come down on her own. So, noble ladies are not able to climb trees. What a disappointment. Well, better to just wait. After some time, the lady was finally lowered from the tree, and Rosanna thanked him. What the hell kind of trick is this? The Duke cursed. Did she really pull this stunt because she was under house arrest? Was she trying to kill herself? But Rosanne said it was not like that and asked to listen to her. Silence, the Duke ordered, but Rosanna didn't understand why he was so angry. And he started to get worked up. How could they allow the lady they served to do such a thing? They were just clearing the table. And they dare call that an excuse, damn headmaid. He'll get them all fired. Despite all the girls' requests, the Duke said that he did not need servants who did not have respect for their master. But then Rosanna called out to him. If someone keeps an eye on him, that must be a compelling reason for responsibility. But doesn't that apply to him too? Then who should she hold accountable herself? Perhaps she should turn to the emperor with a request to replace her own father. The father asked if she dared to speak to him like that, all for their protection, but Rosanna said it was the parents' duty to keep an eye on their child. If her own father refuses to even look at her, how can she expect others to respect her and follow her? The servant's attitude towards her, from the thought of her, it all started with him, his father, the Duke. When he himself does not value her, does he really think that others will do this instead of him? So he cannot blame these innocent people no matter who serves her. She was still the unloved, illegitimate daughter of Duke Leylaton, no more than a simple Rosanna Leylaton. She told the girls that they could get up, but the maids were hesitant. She asked if they hadn't heard the order, or if they also didn't want to listen to her words. "Not at all," exclaimed the maids, and with her father's permission she needed to get down to business. "You," the Duke addressed the knight. "Yes, his lordship," he asked. The man asked about Rosanna, what he thought of her, but no, he asked her to forget. At night, in the city's alleys, men asked about the presence of a dying wish. Fights and various brawls, who said that he can just win money and leave. Sighing, Rosanna thought, so the empire still has rot inside. Since ancient times, the royal lineage has been dependent on wars. Even in reckless battles, there were heroes who brought victory. But behind the prosperity and dazzling victories, the shadow of starving commoners always followed in their footsteps. While she was sealed away, she wondered if the world had changed a little, but it seemed like life here was still the same. A child's cry was heard, the man asked. "I'd just give it all away, especially since there's not much here. Why bother?" The little girl begged for the money to be returned. She needed it for bread. Her father had not eaten anything for several days. And who said that this is her last money for food? She can earn money. This money is enough to pay the rent, but not enough for the down payment. "Rent and down payment?" the girl asked. "Rent is one thing, but what does he mean about down payment?" He told the little girl that the world had always been cruel. Everyone else paid without objection, so why was she being stubborn? The little girl was indignant, and then the thug asked if she wanted him to clearly show why people were afraid of them. But now he had intrigued her too. Rosanna asked why people were so afraid of him. She understood that they needed to collect rent if they rented out their home. They had a right to receive money for it. But not demanding any contribution is ridiculous. The man realized that it was definitely a woman. She looks small, so she hopes that she can rely on the strength of this girl, and what can she do anyway? But even so, he couldn't pull his hand out of the girl's grip. Even so, "What is this?" Rosanne said. "He just thought she was an ordinary girl, right?" And she asked him not to worry. He's not the only one like this. Everyone thinks the same when they first meet her. And then they realize reality. After experiencing everything firsthand, the man screamed. Almost crying, he called his comrades idiots and asked if they were going to just stand and watch. Yes, her courage is worthy of respect, but he is not like his boss, who can give in just because she is a woman. Rosanna didn't appreciate the concern and knocked the man out with one punch, knocking out his teeth. The gang boss was horrified by the lady's power, and Rosanne said that whoever he was, she didn't care, and for now she would just beat him up. After all the investigations, Lily said, and yet she couldn't help but worry. She asked if they really understood what she said. "Yes, we understand everything," exclaimed the three healthy men. From now on, they will only charge a fair rent. They need to help each other and live in harmony, so this was a lesson to them. The girl was amazed at her sister's strength. They said that from now on they would help others, and then Rosanna told them to get up and go return everyone's contributions. But if they don't learn today's lesson and return to their old ways, then next time everything will end differently than today. Rosanne was just stretching her aching wrist, but the men took it as a threatening gesture. After sending them on their way, she asked the little girl how her hand was, and the girl said that he hadn't grabbed it as hard. The girl said that they would no longer demand other payments from her, but she would still have to pay rent, but the little girl knew this. The little girl asked her sister what her name was. She wanted to thank her one day for today. Rosanne asked to be forgotten. She would help anyone who was treated unfairly. And when she grows up, she should not ignore crying children. She should gather up her courage and, if possible, help them. Thinking what a cool little sister she is, she promised that she would do that. "Excellent," answered Rosanna. Then she hoped she would be happy. And finally, the little girl thanked her sister for protecting her. She will never forget that. No, she should be the one thanking her, the girl thought, for being able to protect her. The Duke heard the news that she had been injured. The lady had called off the wedding and had caused a commotion by climbing a tree. But she wasn't hurt. She just tore her dress a little when she climbed up. "Wait!" he exclaimed. "She really did climb up there herself, but don't tell me she really risked her life exactly," she replied. She explained that the chick had fallen out of its nest, and if she had not helped it return, its life would have been in danger. She only asked not to tell her that the Grand Duke could not climb trees. She remembered that when he was younger, he had been cool and strong. It's not that she, the lady, is just acting recklessly, but Rosanna would much rather hear from him that she is very strong. By the way, she asked how he was doing lately, speaking about the curse. Perhaps it was because of that kiss that it had not bothered him for several days, but he could not bring himself to tell her about it. "Duke!" she called out to the man. "Why are you hanging around?" What madness, cold sweat, red face. He couldn't hide his appearance no matter how hard he tried. And now he couldn't even finish the sentence he had started. It seemed like he was experiencing incredible pain. She remembered his symptoms stopping when they held hands. Maybe then. Oh, it seemed to work. His eyes cleared again, and she told his lordship that they needed to clear something up. Even though his symptoms disappear when they hold hands, it still doesn't mean she can lift his curse. Besides, it still doesn't cancel it out. Chayton said he hadn't even thought about it. "What a relief," she said surprisingly. "And then I asked his lordship if I could ask him something. If it wasn't something strange, then of course." Intertwining his hand with hers, Rosanna turned to his lordship. "Yes," he asked, and the girl asked what he was feeling now. Why is she doing this so suddenly? Chayton thought nervously. Is she talking about their hands, or maybe about the kiss? Or could it be that this lady had definitely fallen in love with the Grand Duke? Paul, by the way, had never said anything like that. Just like Paul had said then, he thought, maybe the princess really had fallen in love with him. In that case, he had to give an answer and breathlessly replied that he liked everything. "I see," the girl replied and suggested that the Duke continue to tremble, which he asked in surprise. Rosanne explained that she meant their relationship, but he said that he wanted her to heal him with her own hands, and for this they need to get closer. He sighed, and then Rosanna thought that his body was still not okay, although they were holding hands. The Duke was saddened by the significance of her actions, hardly expecting more, and asked her to forget. She asked, what about telling everyone they were a couple? They could use that as a disguise. And since it's a fake relationship, there's no emotional attachment between them. The Duke told the princess that he remembered having important business to attend to and asked if she could excuse him for today. "Of course, no problem," answered Rosanna. After a pause, Chayton said that next time he would visit her properly and left. Rosanne thought that he might be disgusted by the relationship or that he already had someone. That's why the girl thought that next time she should apologize to him. The Duke had come all this way for her, but she still hadn't asked the most important thing, which was how he had become connected to the curse. How he got it. He joined the enslavement squad, which means he definitely became close with his comrades, but how did they all die? What happened in the end? This is what she wanted to find out, but suddenly Chayton appeared and she forgot about everything in the world. But why did she still not feel his presence? Could it really be that he is stronger, even though his body is weak, his strength remains? But suddenly, Lady Rosanna was called out. The servant informed her that the guest was waiting for her in the reception hall. "Okay, he's already on his way," the girl replied. "Reception then. Maybe it's Chayton again and he forgot something. Or maybe, like her, he wanted to ask something, but forgot. This time she should ask him everything that is bothering her now. How did he get this curse? The evil dragon enslavement squad is impressive. Then what about the comrades?" she whispered to herself. "It's been a while, Princess," the guest waiting in the reception room greeted. And turning to her, grinning, he asked what was wrong with her face. She looked as if she expected to see someone else here, the prince clarified. "Well," he asked, "is the one who leads the war unleashed by the Empire to victory a hero? But in reality he is a prisoner, not freed from the endless seal, no more than a fighting dog, bringing victory to the Empire in his teeth." The emperors passed on the rights of ownership of the hero from generation to generation, and not one of them mentioned his release. And so Crown Prince Joseph, holding the hero on a leash, became his next master. How foolish of her to simply assume it must be the Duke, which caused her to completely forget herself and not notice the prince's presence. The man asked the princess why she was so tense, explaining that he had just come to talk. First, he asked her to sit down for a moment. His neck hurt from looking up. Maybe he recognized her. When they sealed her, they gained the ability to recognize her soul. And this ability was passed down from generation to generation, along with property rights. If Joseph had already inherited the title, should she kill him right now? "Okay," said the prince, smiling. "I won't waste time and will get straight to the point." Approaching the princess, he told her that he had come to return what rightfully belonged to him. They definitely found her. He noticed that her soul was missing. He needed to catch him off guard and quickly find something that would work as a weapon. It's better to do everything before the prince draws his sword. In the worst case, he'll manage with his bare hands. But then Joseph said, "Marriage." And he asked why she called off the engagement, what he was talking about, whether Roseanne had heard him wrong. He said that he came to get back what he had lost. Was that less important than finding out the reason for the break-off of her engagement? He had already heard rumors that she had gone crazy, but they weren't lying. He asked if she really hated this marriage so much. Joseph chuckled and said she really did change, as if she were a different person. And indeed, it turns out he knows nothing. She made the guest stand for too long and asked the prince to sit down. Earlier, Rosanna was too excited and already wanted to act. But if she had immediately killed the prince, the rest of his entourage would have immediately begun an attack. It was impossible to endanger people because of Joseph. "Okay," said the prince. He was personally convinced that their princess had gone crazy. Well, now he was offering to talk to Rosanna seriously. She was so disgusted by the idea of marrying the Marquis that she refused him, and it hasn't mattered to this day. "But isn't it all about the new affair with the Grand Duke Varfus?" he asked. And he had grown a lot when Rosanna saw him last, when he was still learning to read and write. No matter how crazy she is, one must not forget the difference between private and public affairs. High treason is on the horizon. He came to regain the loyalty of the Leylaton family, and if he becomes emperor, shouldn't he use the power of this house? "So think carefully," said the Sweet Tooth. "The Grand Duke will end up alone on the battlefield. And still naive, a child who can't even hide his goal or intention to kill someone." "So," asked Rosanna, "is he now simply jealous that she preferred the Grand Duke? But in any case, everything she does with the Duke is all her personal business. Princess, this is the last time he will turn a blind eye to her antics." The prince was irritated. Next time she would better think twice before joking like that. He did ask her what the reason was for her refusal of this marriage. Well, her answer was still the same. It's her business, so she just does what she thinks is right. Throwing a cup at the girl, Joseph suddenly shuddered in anger at her. What the— Did she really catch it with her bare hands, the prince thought in shock. "Well then," said Rosanna. And she asked, "Now it's her turn what?" Joseph asked timidly. He asked Lady Leylaton. She wasn't going to throw it at him either, she was. "And what?" she asked. "Were there any problems?" This childish threat may seem funny, he thought, feeling insulted. But what was this suffocating pressure he felt? The Prince Tsikaya ordered that the cup be quickly placed on the table. If she dared to raise her hand against him, the Emperor would not leave her alive. Oh my God, she was just joking. What was he so scared about? The servants should be arriving soon to clean up, so it would be better to end this game. Otherwise, he might actually faint from the pressure. He asked the lady if she knew about him, speaking of a hero who was sealed and guarded the empire and served His Majesty the Emperor. If he had called upon a hero to destroy the house of Leylaten, she would have continued to behave this way, saying that the Emperor would not show her compassion. "A protector, a hero, a puppet of His Majesty?" asked Rosanna. "Yes," answered the prince, "a creature that will carry out any order. So she may not even expect mercy from him, and know that she is not allowed to experience any feelings. A puppet like this," but at that moment Rosanna couldn't resist and threw the cup at the prince. It flew past without touching his face and crashed into the wall, shattering into small pieces. The prince had a hard time realizing what was happening because of his stupor and fear. "Lady Yu," he said anxiously to Rosanna. "Oh," the girl answered without a drop of regret. Her hand slipped. She didn't mean to. She didn't mean to. "But this is an attempt on the life of the crown prince," she screamed. She herself understands that such a pathetic excuse is not enough. "Well then, go ahead. Call this hero. Call that puppet he was talking about. He is sure of it, right?" He will have to admit that she threatened him, and he was so frightened by the lady that he had to call upon the hero himself in order to destroy the family. She was afraid that people would begin to doubt his suitability for the title of crown prince and suggested ending the meeting on a warm note. She's right. He's still a long way from being able to control it, and if it becomes known that he has become an enemy of this house— Damn, what should he do, thought the prince, when suddenly there was a knock on the door. "Oh, looks like they've finally arrived," said Rosanna. Joseph asked where she was going. "What is he talking about?" the girl asked, and explained that she just wanted to open the door. "His Highness the Crown Prince," the Duke shouted as he ran in, sincerely thanking him for finding a window to visit them. He recently placed an order for the finest teas and desserts, which would arrive soon, but suddenly he asked why there was only one cup. Did she just make tea for herself? No, it was probably the servants doing it. Did they seriously do this after the recent conversation? But Rosanna told the Duke that everything was wrong and asked him to look where her father had not yet had time to ask, before he immediately shouted, "What happened here? He just bought this set? It took him more than 1 month to bring it from abroad." "No, wait a minute. Now is not the time to worry about the cup and why it is broken in the first place." He asked Rosanna just not to say that his suspicions were true. If he thinks that she left him, then yes, he is right, but it is better to listen. But her father shouted that he didn't need any explanations, and he begged her to stay out of trouble and not to do anything at least once. Who in the whole empire can behave like a real hooligan? "Well," answered Rosanne, "for example, the Crown Prince." "What?" the Duke asked. "Is the Crown Prince also a hooligan?" she answered, and the father asked, "But when did he say that he behaves like a hooligan?" And he was sure that he reacted that way only because she was the first to throw the cup at him, and he had no choice. "It wasn't like that at all," Rosanna snorted. "Actually, it was the Crown Prince who threw it at her first." But her father asked her to stop, asking that if His Highness raised this issue, what should they do then? He offered his deepest apologies and asked for understanding for his ill daughter. Well, what a pitiful man, the hero thought. "Your Highness," he said timidly when the prince did not answer and Rosanna asked, "You see, she told you so." She said she would go. Since he was going to refuse his fatherly duty, the least he could do was to restore order. But before that, the Duke stopped Rosanna and asked her to wait a little. "What's wrong with him?" the girl thought irritably. "Why is he looking at her so strangely? Just don't tell me. Is he simply too afraid to be alone with the Crown Prince, Duke?" She addressed her father tenderly. And angrily she explained that she was leaving everything to him, and she was a little tired. Will she ever be able to cure him of this cowardice? Oh, it will be a long road. Joseph certainly doesn't know anything. The Emperor must know the truth, and he simply didn't tell his son about it. A greedy person still ends up being overly cautious and suspicious. It is quite natural that he wants to hide his weakness even from his son, but the Crown Prince is not the Emperor's son. To him, he's just a rival claiming the throne, right? He was only saying all that nonsense about her because that's his nature. A puppet incapable of experiencing feelings, that means that's what they think of her. She hoped that they at least considered her a human being. If only this seal had not restrained her, then it would not be this cup that was in her hands, but the Emperor's neck. But no, it was quite difficult to do this in this body even without the seal, a weak body, capable of getting injured just by crushing something. It would not be easy to break through the palace's defenses, however. This does not mean that there is no other way out. Even if she couldn't strangle him with her own hands, she could still make him feel what it was like to suffocate. This child, no, this man, he will be enough to force even the crown prince to work for him, an indomitable man. But he is also a man who needs her because of his curse. Chaitin Varfus, since he will be on her side. The servant asked if she had called her, and Roanna said that she had a job for her. And to begin with, she said that she needed her to go to the duchy of his lordship Varfus. But this is the Grand Duke's territory, yes, go and have a cup of tea, as if you were going to deliver news to others. Lady, it's a little— The maid was embarrassed, but what about it? Rosanna asked. Show some zeal for saving her from getting fired. Is there any other reason why she can't go to his mansion? The maid asked not to look at her like that. She couldn't do that. What was she talking about? The lady asked. If she doesn't want to, then she doesn't have to go. She'll ask someone else. But that's not the point, she replied. If the Duke finds out about this, everyone will be fired, he warned, not to even mention this name in front of him. Okay, let's say, answered Rosanna. The maid wondered what had happened to the armrest of this chair, but out of guilt, she tried to keep a closer eye on everything. She had to replace it quickly before she noticed, but suddenly the princess asked her to take it. This, and this too, and take this, yes, lady, the girl answered uncertainly. And having received the jewelry, she asked the lady what was the matter, and whether she should send them to be cleaned. Take your pick, said Rosanna. Since she came straight away at her call, she would give her one. And if she fulfills her order, then she will receive them all, but if not, then he can leave. And then the servants asked who would dare to refuse the lady's order. She said that she would immediately go to the estate of the Grand Duke of Varfus. Since his name is not taboo here, Rosanna asked with a smile. Well, the Duke is not here, so it's okay, they answered her. Then go and walk around there for a bit so that people will notice her. The maid said that she can even do a somersault so that they will definitely see her. And one more thing, she asked her to call a jeweler. The box was empty. It needed to be replenished urgently. But the lady had no more money left, so Rosanna ordered that everything be written down in the Duke's name. He didn't even ask if she was okay after such humiliation. Even a stranger wouldn't have done that. And besides the jeweler, call a designer too. This time we're going big. It will be done, the girl said. When the maid left, saying that she would call everyone, Rosanna thought that the gem was larger than she thought. Would the Duke really do such a thing for a daughter he didn't like? Milady has a lot of things to do now. She had to receive both His Majesty the Prince and the Grand Duke Varfus during the day. Their Duke can't stand Varfus, even today after breakfast. He seemed absent-minded. Suddenly his mind was clouded. While the maids whispered behind her back, Rosanna finally found the rabbit-shaped cloud. And she thought about who she should now look for in the sky. There was a rabbit, a butterfly, and now, maybe, a dragonfly. But suddenly a heartbreaking cry was heard calling her by name. She finally got there, she thought with a smile. Rosanna, the wretch, flew up and screamed her father, "What is all this?" "He's talking about the bill," the girl asked. "But he knew it was the bill," the Duke exclaimed. "Then why ask?" she asked, and her father explained that he wanted to know where the amount on the check came from. "Oh, that's it," Rosanna answered casually, and asked the Duke, and he gave her some money. "What?" the man asked, and the daughter answered, "She is the child, and the Duke is the parent. It is the parent's responsibility to take responsibility for their child's mistakes. And since the Duke didn't even give her any money, all responsibility lies solely with him. So," she suggested, "let everyone do what they need to do and wish them luck." "Parental duty means, well, there couldn't be any more reasons," said the Duke. "Raising one's daughter is also a parent's duty. And seeing her impulsively make reckless spending, the ultimate conclusion is that he needs to re-educate her. Therefore, she will not pay this bill, so she will understand the consequences of thoughtless spending." "But she had no money," Rosanna replied, "and she could handle this herself. Because this is the outcome of someone who spends money recklessly. Although she herself has nothing, she can sell jewelry or something else." True, as if these were the words Rosanna had been waiting for, she asked her father. She asked if selling jewelry and ornaments was really a good choice, and the Duke replied yes, warning of a decline in value. "Did you hear her ask the maid and ask her to tell the merchants that they could sell all her things?" The Duke asked why she was hesitating. It was Rosanna's order, and he should have fired her last time. So she was planning to clean up after herself, he said, preparing things for sale to traders. Well, Rosanna expected something like this to happen, and her father told her to take it as a lesson and avoid impulsive spending in the future. He also asked her to correct her strange speech, and what was wrong with it. The Duke had heard that she had even spoken in that tone with the Crown Prince, and he asked her to be glad that she was not punished for insulting a member of the royal family, but she never insulted them, Rosanna explained. It was an informal meeting, so she spoke to this brat like this, Roseanne, her father exclaimed, asking her to watch her language. The girl told the Duke that even if she were part of the royal family, no one could punish her. It would be very foolish to humiliate the core of the Emperor's faction, let alone the Crown Prince, who had not even ascended the throne. Right. Haha. It looks like the Duke didn't even think about it. Yeah, he'll have to relearn everything properly. So, even if the Emperor felt offended, he didn't have to worry, especially since she only sold things that he handed over unofficially. What? He asked the Duke, trembling. Just don't tell him that she is selling His Majesty's gifts. When she confirmed this, the Duke said that she would destroy their family. She says this because she does not understand anything. Okay, Duke, if the Emperor ever tries to kill him, she asked him to know that she will intervene and save him. He should be grateful, because the strongest person in the Empire is his daughter. Rosanna, on the verge of a nervous breakdown, the Duke turned to her. Yes, the Duke, Rosanna asked. Arrest. Her arrest has been extended for another month, he said. She said it seriously, but he doesn't believe her. By tomorrow they will be in full bloom, and the scent should become stronger. While she was sitting over the flowers, the maid asked her mistress what she planned to do today. What else? Answered Rosanna, to admire the flowers, and later behind the clouds and after how the sprouts grew again, asked the maid. What is this again? The lady answered. She can only observe all this today, but there are other interesting activities, the girl answered. It's a bit of a shame that His Highness didn't say anything to the Duke. The Duke's reaction would probably have been quite amusing. She was gone and Chayton was back, so he had no time for the Duke yet. Her soul was the Emperor's greatest strength, and the Leylaton house was his great support. And if Chayton rebels after losing these two, the ruler of the throne will definitely change. And what about that? The maid asked. She suggested leaving the house, but they reminded her of the arrest. She suggested calling friends, but Rosanna had none. Lost in thought, the girl said, perhaps she would like to go to the library. To the library, she was surprised. And she said enthusiastically that she would now bring her the key to the library. Good, the lady relied on her. She was thinking about the wonderful effect of the gift, but suddenly a man called out to Lady Rosanna. He said that a guest had arrived and was now waiting for her. Rosanna asked who had arrived. Lady Rihanna from the Potlenga house. The man answered. Hearing this name, the maid melted and said that she had been called the Heavenly Galaxy for several years. She asked if this was really the same man. Yes, that's right, the man replied. Well, he could go to her and tell her to wait for her after all. She came without an invitation, so it would be okay if she was late. Of course, lady, the messenger replied, and said that he would convey everything immediately. Rihanna Potlengi, why did she decide to visit her, no matter how much she thought about it? It doesn't seem like they had a good relationship. I wonder if something happened to her. They are not close, she asked. Who knows? The servant asked. Maybe she wanted to get closer to her. With her? Asked Rosanna. Seriously, she really thinks so, but maybe not exactly so, the girl admitted. But since it has come to this, maybe it would be nice to befriend her. Lady Rihanna has had the title of Heavenly Galaxy for several years now. She was not interested in this, but the title, given by the Emperor personally, was fortunate that it became known in this way. The Crown Prince's wife must possess both beauty and intelligence, and such young ladies rarely participate in events. So he asked her if there was any way to invite these young ladies to the royal banquet. First, you need to choose a young, intelligent lady from among those present at the banquet, and then give her the title of Heavenly Galaxy. As expected from a hero, it was a wise decision to ask her. The Emperor thanked the girl. And after such an absurd task, the hero hastened to leave, and never to hear such nonsense again. She suggested it only to get them to leave her alone, but she didn't know that her words would be taken seriously. Well, they had problems with the names of the villages too, but it seems they liked the idea, since they took it for themselves. She asked Miss how about trying it herself. This year it has not yet been decided which lady will receive this title. But Rosanna didn't really understand, and asked if she didn't have to be the youngest and smartest there. No, the maid replied, you just need to be beautiful, because in the end, the galaxy is beautiful. What, and how did this even happen, she thought. But oh well, the memory of this body had not yet been fully transferred to her. But in any case, she is not interested to begin with. They better hurry. They can't let the guest wait so long. Rosanna didn't expect anything, but it was immediately obvious that she hadn't come to make friends. She came to the reception area and with security. And besides, he sits there with such an expression on his face, waiting for her. For some reason, there was a memory that kept hovering somewhere out of reach. It seemed to have something to do with the Count's family. Rihanna turned to Lady Laylaton and asked if she was really as rude as everyone said, right. Not only did she make the guest wait for so long, but she didn't even dare to say hello. They still treated the uninvited guest as a guest, and she still asks about the greeting. I thought that before saying hello she should have apologized, or she wanted to say that she contacted her and she just didn't receive the message. They already know each other, and since she didn't start the conversation with an apology, she won't say hello either. Opa suggested that we just start talking quickly and leave. What kind of rudeness is that? The security guard asked. Mark, leave it. Rihanna stopped him. Uneducated people are like that by nature. They probably don't even realize how ugly they are behaving, so I asked him not to get angry in vain. Maybe they should be the ones who accept them for who they are, she said, thinking of the princess. So the rumors that she had gone crazy were true. She had been more careful in the past. And now she looks completely open and is not afraid of anything. Whether she is a crazy princess or in her right mind, it does not concern her. She just wanted to say what she wanted and leave. She heard about her meeting with the crown prince and hoped that she hadn't started thinking about something stupid. Rihanna was about to start talking about a couple for the crown prince when suddenly Rosanna exclaimed, as if she remembered, "The house of Count Putlenga. This is the family that bought the title for nobility." "How dare you?" she asked, alarmed and angry. "And how did she even find out about this?" This secret is over 100 years old. Not even all family members know about it. But for Rosanna, it was a weight off her shoulders. Mark could not listen to this any longer and shouted, asking how she dared to treat his mistress so rudely. The glove fell at her feet and Rosanna picked it up thoughtfully. "Princess!" Rihanna cried out in alarm. And she asked, stunned, if he was serious, if he was really going to accept the challenge of a duel. What self-confidence? What? Rosanna thought with a grimace. Did he just challenge her to a duel? Seriously? Just like that? Rihanna scolded Mark, and he apologized, saying that he could no longer stand there and tolerate the disrespect shown to her. She apologized for being caught off guard, but this is a tradition from ancient times, and now the princess does not dare refuse, since she accepted the invitation. But in her time it was considered worthy to simply draw swords and rush into battle. It was romantic to also ask about parents. Okay, then later they will send a letter with the date of the duel. Why wait for that too? And you can't choose right away? Asked Rosanna. It's too late, Rihanna replied. She'd better quickly find a knight who would fight for her with Mark, although she was unlikely to find anyone. The maid asked if she could simply ask for the duel to be cancelled. Who could possibly stand against the knight Putlenga? Why, is he really that good? Of course, he was a candidate for captain of the First Imperial Knights, definitely a recognized skill. The rules didn't prohibit her from performing, but if she did, she would definitely attract attention, which was annoying. She asked the maid where they were going now. They were already there, she informed the lady. She asked to be brought to the training ground, and Rosanna was shocked that these were the knights of their house. Wow, she thought furiously, they're just messing around. Of course, it looked chaotic, and she asked to be introduced. "Everyone, attention!" cried the maid. "Lady Rosanna has arrived." However, the words did not reach the ears of the knights. There was not a single bow. It's good that at least some of them nodded in greeting after making eye contact. She probably just said it quietly, but Rosanna asked not to worry about it. She would do everything herself now. It brought back memories of the wedding. The servants relied on the lady, and she appeared before the lazy people. And catching their gaze on her, she menacingly asked if they were getting paid to warm the benches. In her time, if a commander had come in like this and his subordinates were playing around, they would have experienced for themselves what real hell was like. Wasting time and then telling the lady that they trained hard was rude. Rosanna hissed. She had only just started, but had already managed to offend them, and sighing, she ordered the guys to pack their things. And she reported that they were all fired, which immediately caused the knights to rebel. Now, laughing terribly, she asked where else they would find such a carefree place where they would be paid for nothing. The man angrily told the miss that she was crossing all boundaries. Ignoring this, the lady asked the servant to call the butler and tell him that all the knights had been dismissed by her. "With all due respect, miss," the knight exclaimed, "only a duke can command knights." She couldn't just take them and fire them, so Rosanna asked the servant to bring the duke too. "We must first call the butler. After all, it was he who hired these clowns, and now he is responsible." She would talk to them herself, so the servant's job was simply to bring him here and add that she would sell him something else if he refused. But before, she trembled all over at the mention of the duke. The knights whispered, "Someone stop her." There was a misunderstanding. The man who arrived told Miss and explained that they were on a break. So they were all relaxed, and he assured her that they had trained hard before the break. "So you're saying that this person with a baby-skinned bottom has been training hard just recently?" As captain, he apologized for their behavior. They were upset by the talk of pay, so it was all her fault, asked Rosanna. "Well, if someone came out of nowhere and started insulting her, she wouldn't be happy, right? They trained as hard as they could." "Well, if that's true, then it's simple. Sir Mark of House Putlenga, Lady Rihanna's knight, has just challenged her to a duel." The knights were overcome with a dark terror, and the princess asked if there was a knight there who was ready to fight for her. "Maybe someone— No, really there are no volunteers," she asked. "And so they work hard, they say, and still expect to be paid in full." But Sir Mark was an exception. He was supposed to lead the Golden Knights, and he also won the sword tournament every year. They could have simply said that they were scared, but the outcome was obvious. The captain exclaimed, "No one wants a senseless fight." "Then don't be angry that she calls it cowardice. They are indulgent towards themselves, and at the same time they are angry that she tells them the truth to their faces. But if it had been someone else, they would have happily performed already," the man explained. "True," Rosanna asked, but it seemed to her that even street thugs could do them in a jiffy. "What did you say? What did you hear?" Rosanna interrupted. "They are weaker than even the bandits from the alley." The man asked her to lie down and watch her tone. He warned them that even they have their limits. Rosanna asked them not to make him laugh. "But who's joking now?" the commander thought. "The strongest of them is an ordinary kitten, and the knights of this ducal house are— what a joke— a pack of domestic cats. If she really doubted their strength, they would prove it right now," the man said threateningly. "She understands that the blade could accidentally slip and then chop something other than the log. They just need to show that they are better than thugs, God. Doesn't he understand that he is behaving worse than them?" Roseanne suggested that he take a chance. He said that if she admitted she was wrong, he would put down his sword, but she begged him to act. If she offended him, then he must prove that she is wrong. "He thinks he can't," he shouted. She pressed the handle, and the commander shouted that she would regret it, and this time they would finish. But suddenly Rosanna asked what he was doing. "Can't he draw his sword?" "Captain, what's wrong with you?" his subordinates asked, asking if he would continue to stand like this. "Come on, show them what they can do quickly, and shut your mouths, you idiots," the man thought. No, it seemed like they simply didn't understand what was going on here. Even he himself could hardly believe it. This lady definitely suppressed him. "What is it? Does he want to say something about her?" Rosanna asked threateningly. No, it wasn't even a question. More like a threat that could cost him his life, depending on the answer. When did this lady become so terrifying? Why did she hide it? But now, he could only obey her, and replied that he only wanted to offer their apologies to Lady Rosanna. "That's great, having taught the knights a lesson," the girl answered joyfully. Meanwhile, the knights became worried and asked the commander what he was doing, whether it was because of the small threat of dismissal. "But that's not the only job you can get, Silence," the man shouted, ordering everyone to quickly apologize to the young lady. "If you value your life," he said through his teeth, "do what he tells you." God, the others sighed. They only did it because their commander insisted. And so everyone offered their sincere apologies to Lady Rosanna. Rank and power were always important factors among knights, and she doubted they would cause trouble after today. Although she did not convince all of them, it no longer mattered, because the one who stood above them all eventually bowed his head to her. She said that she would go, and the commander asked the lady if he should assign an escort for her. "And who will accompany whom?" she asked. The man had no more questions. She then asked the servant why she was still there, and the girl explained that she had run into the manager, who said that the Duke was not at home. But the atmosphere was so tense that she didn't know how to talk to her. In other words, she saw everything. Finally, Rosanna asked the maid's name, and she said her name was Jane. "Jane, then," she repeated. She would be very grateful if no one outside knew about today's incident. The scam was as simple as pie, and Jane promised to keep her mouth shut. She asked if she could call a carriage to take her home. That would be nice, Rosanna replied, as her steps were too small and slow. Jane was worried that rumors might spread from the Knights, but the lady asked her not to worry. None of them would gossip about their shame. And besides, didn't she think they deserved another chance? Just like they had decided with the maids, Jane agreed. There was no need to call the Duke, for those who cling only to their pride will leave of their own free will. But if even a grain of something moved in them, then perhaps they will no longer be as they saw them. After all, they are still knights. But here's the real problem. At the moment, no knight is fit for a duel. So who should she send? Will she really have to perform herself in the end? She sighed. Jane shouted to the lady that the date was already known and asked if she would just sit there with her hands folded. And what else was there to do? Asked Rosanna. Jane offered to hire mercenaries to find a famous person for a good sum, especially since she had money left. Do you think Ran will give this money to some shameless scoundrels? Rosanna asked angrily. Jane realized she had crossed the line, her brows furrowed, indicating that she was furious, unlike her usual state. These damn mercenaries, every single one of them, as soon as they receive an advance in hand, immediately send a letter of apology. She hoped that she would understand her. Now she would give this money to her rather than to a mercenary. Jane was glad that she was valued so highly. In any case, she asked Jane not to worry. This wasn't a war where lives were at stake. It didn't matter if they lost. But then the lady's honor would be tarnished. And what honor could she tarnish? Asked Rosanna. She asked her not to get so hung up on victory or defeat. Anything can happen in life, and so what? And yet, it can't help but be frustrating. There are big bets on this fight. And apparently, not a single living soul bet on her. What? Asked Rosanne. She asked Jane to tell her about this bet, how big the prize was, what she had to do for the voice, and where that place was. She saw what happened last time. When the Duke received the bill, they almost got into a fight there. She needs her own money. Jane tried to reason with her somehow, but the lady immediately ordered her to hurry and find out everything she needed to do it before the end of the application period. At the event, 1,000,000 gold pieces were bet on Putlenga's victory, but the fact that only one side is accepting bets is not exactly a good idea. But why then bet on the side that will obviously lose? It's no different from throwing money down the drain. Although he had made a bet, he did not want to win much from it, and in organizing it, he relied on Lailaten's reputation. They discussed Lady Lailaten's appearance, but the Marquise hoped that she would not go so far as to marry him. She would not tolerate such humiliation. Mr. Cazelia speaks correctly. Of course, Lady Lailaten would not trust the knights of her house. So this was the list of those who placed a bet. How nice that almost everyone voted for her. Rihanna decided to wager the honor of Sir Mark, who had come forward, 1,000,000 gold for House Putlenga. She really couldn't resist. The stakes have skyrocketed. There is no more suitable lady to take the place of Crown Princess. They asked to be allowed to congratulate her on her victory, when suddenly there was a crash outside. "What was that sound just now?" the Marquise exclaimed. "What happened outside? She said that she was not going to the ball." A voice suddenly rang out. "So why do they keep calling her? How many times do they have to tell her that she's only here to place a bet and that's all?" The lady said all this as she burst into the ball, calmly walking past the noble persons. "Lady Lailaten," the audience exclaimed in amazement. Rosanna, the abandoned groom, cried out in horror, not believing his eyes. Oh, there he is," the lady gasped. And at the same moment she announced that she was betting 30,000,000 gold on the victory of the Lailaten house. Taken aback by the amount named, Rosanna asked the Marquise if he had heard "Allo." "What did she just say?" he asked. Recovering from the shock, Rosanna repeated, "Saying that she wants to make a bet." "Not that," he exclaimed. Then what? The girl asked irritably. He asked, breaking into a shout, who she wanted to bet 30,000,000 gold on. Of course it's on Lady Lailaten, or they want her to bet on the other side. Rihanna asked if she was serious about saying she was going to beat Sir Mark. She only joined because she thought it was funny. This is no different from the statement that the Lailaten family is going to defeat Sir Mark. "So that's how it is?" Rosanna asked thoughtfully. "Then does this mean that those who bet on the Putlengi family, they wish to declare war on her family?" Lady Lailaten asked. Lady Rihanna seemed to go cold with fear. The hall was plunged into a dark, oppressive atmosphere. It can't be, thought Rihanna. She had never heard of someone changing so much before. Even though she is the only daughter of a duke in the empire, she has always remained an empty shell, always caring about the opinions of others, standing aside, the illegitimate child of a duke, but now her very presence stuns everyone around her. After a pause, Rosanna haughtily asked why no one was answering. Seriously, this is just a bet for fun, because no one would go against the Leylaton family for such a paltry sum. That's right, it's just a joke. Yes, the Marquis made a bet as a support because their family maintains friendly relations. She said she would take them at their word and asked if she could sign the details of the bet, but she didn't have anything as collateral. She was told that her signature was a guarantee, as if she were putting the family's honor at stake, which was worth 1,000 gold pieces. Then Rosanna suggested that everyone should have fun, and that this uninvited guest, having arrived without an invitation, would leave them. After the ladies left, they began to whisper that Duke Leylaton seemed to have raised a tiger. But seeing her so confident in herself, perhaps the situation will change a little. Jane was pacing around the garden, and Rosanna said she couldn't find a place for herself. Jane apologized, and she anxiously asked if she really thought that everything would be okay. The duel was tomorrow. And they say that the anonymous person put in 50 gold pieces and might hire mercenaries. Just dare mention them again, the lady warned. This means she understands that 30 million will simply disappear. From now on, there will only be victories in her life. She will not tolerate losses, Rosanne said. That's why they must win, if only for the sake of 30 million, and for that they need a knight, the lady thought. The knight who came this morning might be her last chance if she found a supporter. Rosanne asked if she really thought it would make a difference if they took the knight, but at least it was something, Jane exclaimed. She asked her not to worry. Obviously, he wanted to look good in front of others by doing a favor to the losing side. They said he came after hearing the manager's story, and because the knights avoided being fired, he simply cut their salaries for half a year. Of course, it's good that he plucked up his courage, but whether her opinion of him has changed depends on future efforts. But then Rosanna became interested in why she herself was so carried away by this. After all, this was her duel. Well, my lady was simply generous to her, Jane answered, embarrassed. And if by some chance she wins and takes all the money, then... So does she hope that she will get something too? Asked Rosanne. Well, to be honest, answered Jane. Rosanna said she didn't like it that she didn't hide her desires. What? The maid asked. If she had said something ridiculous like she liked her, she would have thrown her out. From now on, she must continue to tell the truth. But if she hears flattery from her, she won't stay here any longer. She'll keep that in mind, Jane replied. He asked if she had gotten the keys to the library. Jane tried, but his lordship ordered her to deal with her challenge first. He was furious and asked how she could bet such a sum without finding a knight. How petty, Rosanna hissed. More importantly, she still hasn't found the knight, so how does anyone even know about it? Yes, she was curious to know the source of these rumors. They leaked information about the duel, but the fact about the knight is a different matter. He must not go beyond this estate, Jane thought. But Rosanne suggested thinking about it later, saying that it seemed her invited guest had arrived. The man turned to Lady Rosanna and informed her that His Grace, the Grand Duke Barthius, had come to visit her. The girl told him to take him to the living room and tell him that she had been looking forward to this meeting. Jane asked the lady, just not to tell her the reason why she invited the Duke and what she was proposing, asked Rosanna. Just forget about the 30 million, and immediately called the maid to go. It was time to meet the champion who would bring her gold. Long time no see, Mr. Varfius. I think this was their first meeting since that day, said Rosanna. Something wrong? She asked, seeing that he wasn't even looking at her. Everything's fine, Chayton replied. She has nothing to worry about. Rosanna decided that she would definitely not hesitate today and said that she was glad, and the Duke decided that he would not give in to her. Today, he really didn't have time to think about it, Chayton, as Rosanna asked why he hadn't visited her yet. Since he left, saying that he had some business to attend to, she continued to wait for some news from him, but nothing followed. Because the girl's face was so close to his, Chayton couldn't resist and became embarrassed. Blushing, he asked the lady why she was again speaking about such things so casually. When he removed his hand from his face, Rosanna was able to see his condition. And I was, to put it mildly, discouraged by Chayton's reaction. But quickly calming down, the Duke asked what was more important. Was she okay? And what? She asked. He heard that after him, Prince Joseph visited her. That's right, the Duke believed. He ordered her not to meet with him anymore. That's also right. Chaitin was so blinded by his desires that he didn't even think about her, even though he knows perfectly well that the nobility is trying to avoid him. In his desire to overcome madness, he was unable to think the plan through to the end, and it was obvious that the pressure on her was simply unimaginable. The worried Duke said that he himself would find a way to get rid of his curse, as for what he said. But suddenly Rosanna interrupted and asked, 50 million, it was him, right? What? The Duke asked awkwardly. What does she mean, 50 million? It's obvious, isn't it, that her rival is Lady Rihanna, the potential crown princess. And the knight who will fight is a former candidate for the royal guard. It is for these reasons that no one bet on her. Moreover, who else could anonymously bet such a large sum for it? Hell, he even gave the servant a good tip, all so that the bet would remain anonymous. Rosanna asked why he had come today. Everything he had just said could have been delivered by messenger. And yet, why did he come to her personally today? The little fox asked. It seemed that he could hide nothing from this woman, and besides, he always felt that he was rather difficult to understand. And he explained that he heard that she still had not found a knight for this duel. That's right, the lady confirmed. Usually they throw out a knight from their house, but if she hasn't chosen yet, yes, go ahead, Rosanna said contentedly. In general, he wanted to offer a knight from his house Varfos. No, the lady's cry was immediately heard. Everything was going so well. So why? This wasn't what she wanted to hear from him. Then what the Duke asked timidly, and Rosanna explained that for this duel she did not need a knight from his wing. She wanted him to marry her himself. The Duke asked if she was asking him to fight the duel for her, and if she understood that it was the knight who should fight. He is the commander of the Shadow Knights, the Emperor's Third Order, and he is also constantly sent to the battlefield, Rosanna explained. And she asked Chaitin if there was a more worthy knight in this empire than he. It would be strange if he didn't come, since even mercenaries are called there, she's right. But even despite this, he couldn't. Sighing, he asked the lady if she had heard what he said. Yes, everything clearly, answered Rosanna. He repeated himself. He came to apologize to her. Because of their communication, she and her family found themselves in a difficult situation. But this is not a question that should worry him. This matter concerns only them and the imperial family. It seemed to the Duke that she did not understand that she would achieve nothing by communicating with him. She saw that he still put others above himself. At that very moment, Chaitin asked the lady what she had just said. What was that? The Duke thought, stunned, as if he had become a child again. But Rosanna asked him not to worry about it. Since he thought so, he could make sure that she won, just as she was helping him. Just like that, the Duke thought, remembering all the moments with her, how she helped him. If so, then of course that's probably how it is. He didn't know what benefit it would bring her, but damn it. If it would compensate her for the trouble he had caused her, the lady said, he needed to bring victory to her. He must take his 50 and her 30 million gold. Gold? He asked. Yes, she answered proudly. And don't forget to bring the interest as well. The Duke ordered himself to come to his senses, and the lady asked him not to worry about the crown prince now. Although he had forbidden her to communicate with him, she had warned him that she would do as she saw fit, which surprised the Duke. She said so, and nothing happened. This man was obsessed with the idea of expelling him as soon as he crossed the threshold of the palace. He would never have left quietly after such words. She replied that he threw a cup at her, and then... What? The Duke asked, jumping up. He threw the cup at her. Well, yes, she answered, and she threw it at him, angry. He must have completely lost his mind, throwing the cup. Rosanne calmed him down by saying that she had thrown it at him too. She wasn't hurt, she was probably very scared, she wasn't tormented by nightmares after that, but she also quit. Rosanne didn't give up. He asked her to see a doctor immediately if she felt unwell, as even a small splinter could get stuck and then fester. Seeing such a reaction to a small incident, she felt strange. She was fine, and it was a relief for the Duke. Besides, did he just use the cup, or did he do something else? The man asked. Rosanne replied, he said he would summon a hero, a doll of the Emperor. He threatened to kill her and destroy her family. The Emperor's doll, that bastard. He said that she could not be afraid. Only the Emperor himself could summon a hero. Even if Crown Prince Joseph requested it, he would not call upon the hero for such a personal matter. And even if it were the Emperor's order, the hero would not have killed an innocent lady. He is not the man she thinks he is. Another person, she thought, stunned. Someone who, according to him, does not kill innocents. His eyes sparkled. The Duke could not tell her more, but she really did not need to be afraid anymore. She knew it. She had to keep this man with her. She told the gentleman that she would really like him to take part in this duel tomorrow. He asked if she could imagine what people would say and ask if they were together. Rosanna asked, "If they were what?" the Duke asked. "What's the problem? They agreed to show everyone that they love carrots, didn't they?" she asked. Roseanne replied that she himself had said that he needed her, but it seemed that he was not so desperate. But this was not so. Even now he was barely holding on. She told the gentleman that if he was truly in despair, he should not retreat from his goal. Not paying attention to others, clinging, tying to yourself and never letting go, the same applies to her. Don't lose control, but no matter how hard he tried to harden his heart, it was all pointless. He really didn't want to refuse her. The day of the duel had finally arrived. Poor Lady Laylatin would no longer be able to show her nose in high society after this day, thought Rihanna. She greeted the lady. There were quite a lot of people gathered today. Almost all of them had heard the rumors. She couldn't drive them away. Viscount Gacelia is also present today and will act as judge. He said that there will be no bias. The lady was asked if she had any objections, as you say. Rosanna answered indifferently. They asked her where her knight was, and asked her not to say that she had not found anyone yet. A lady without a knight, doesn't that mean it's an obvious loss? How annoying! Suddenly a male voice came from behind, asking for forgiveness and whether he was too late. Rosanna replied to her dear knight that she had also just arrived, so everything was fine. What a relief, Duke Varfus chuckled. The man and woman greeted each other in a dramatic manner, leaving the audience with their mouths open. Bowing in respect, Miss Rihanna asked his lordship what brought him here. "A duel," the man answered slowly. "Today he is Lady Laylatin's knight." "Why?" the girl asked his lordship. "Should he interfere in her affairs at all?" "Did he even need to explain anything to her here?" Varfus asked coldly. "Of course not," she answered, thinking it was impossible. "He usually doesn't get involved in such showdowns because of his status. If Mark loses today, he will lose to a half-blood lady and be ridiculed in high society for bragging." And then, out of anger, she exclaimed that this was unfair. She shouted that his lordship could not be a knight. He was a member of the royal family, and only knights could participate in the duel. "Well, actually, knight," Rosanna explained, which, Rihanna exclaimed, is absurd. "The Archduke is a loyal knight of the Emperor who participated in wars, so does she really mean to say that she does not recognize the knight chosen by the Emperor?" "This looks like a challenge to the Emperor, or more like signs of treason. Of course not," screamed Rihanna. "So, will there be a battle or not?" asked the Duke. "Or will they stop at this verbal skirmish instead?" "No, there will be a battle," Lady Potlengi answered desperately, and then Chayton suggested starting. And so the two knights, the two duel opponents, stood facing each other, the Viscount standing between them trembling. It was a great honor for Mark to cross swords with his lordship like this, but he warned him not to let his guard down. In response, the Duke gave the knight a break and asked him to attack first. "As you wish," Mark answered nervously. She attacked him first, but the Duke did not even draw his sword from its sheath to parry the blow. After this, Varfus decided that it was now his turn. Holding the sword not even by the hilt, he swung and asked the knight if he was ready to accept defeat. 1 and 2, the Duke only needed 2 blows, and the enemy was easily defeated. After Mark fell to the ground, the Duke asked the Viscount to announce the result. Gacelia announced that Archduke Varfus had won the victory over Knight Mark, which meant that the winner of today's duel was Lady Laylatin. "It can't be," Rihanna thought angrily, hitting the table, how Sir Mark could lose so quickly. Her rival only chuckled in surprise, and she asked, "So money could be made so easily, she could build a whole business on such duels." "Lady Laylatin," Lady Potlengi thought angrily, how she hates her. Roseanne couldn't even believe that all this money was now hers. One such shot was enough to live. With this, she could break the sealing spell and leave the Duke's house, living a free life without worrying about anything. But now rumors are circulating that she is planning to build a future with his lordship. Doesn't that bother her? "But should it?" asked Rosanna. "No, but still," answered Jane, and the lady sighed. She turned to the maid and she nervously asked what. She already thought that she wanted to say that she gave her too much of a bonus. Maybe it was more than she deserved, but "What are you even talking about?" asked Rosanna. She asked her for the key to the library, actually. And she asked if she really seemed so petty that she could take back what she had already given. "No," Jane answered. She would never have done something like that, but here he is. She took him as soon as they returned. She asked if the lady wanted to go tomorrow morning. Perhaps yes, answered Rosanna. The lady said that she could go and rest, and Jane thanked the lady and asked her not to stay too long. Yes, thought Rosanna, she should rest before going there. That same night she left the room and headed to the previously inaccessible library. There is no one on guard, which means the workers have already left. What does history say about her? And how did the expedition to enslave the dragon ultimately end? It's time to find answers to the questions that have been tormenting you for so long. The reason why Roseanne decided to secretly visit the library was so that she would not leave records of the books she read. The books Rosanna wanted to read were related to the history of the Empire, and among the books were those that contained information about heroes, about those who dealt with civil and other wars, those who helped enslave the dragon. If the imperial family suspects Rosanna of being a hero, then this could be the key to solving the mystery. When the emperor led the endless war to victory, then the gods themselves gave him their blessing. In what she read, there was nothing even about the dragon subjugation squad, which Rosanna also participated in the last time. Of course, she assumed that there might be nothing there about her after all. No matter how great a knight's merits, he is only a knight. But to wipe out everyone who fought side by side with her, what's the point? Shouldn't there at least be a hint of a detachment and a campaign? These damn things, she cursed, when suddenly she felt someone, and it was not Duke Laylatin or Jane. It was definitely some stranger. Rumors from this mansion have been leaking out lately. She didn't know who it was, so she left him alone for a while. But now she wouldn't let it go. She grabbed the spy by the collar and threw him into the air. And throwing him on the floor, she asked who sent him. The man groaned in pain. Roseanne wasn't going to play games with him and told him to answer quickly who sent him here to spy. The calluses on his hands were not like those from a sword, and his voice was unfamiliar to her, whether he was disguised as a servant. Maybe they were deliberately trying to confuse her. He still doesn't intend to talk, although he himself is one step away from dying. What impressive devotion, Rosanna noted and squeezed his throat. He was a bit noisy for a spy. Hadn't he been taught how to behave during interrogations? Or maybe he was just pretending. There needs to be a lamp here to see his face. We need to turn it off for a while. And then... But while the girl was thinking about this, the spy deftly got out of her grip, which weakened. And then he ran away headlong, without even giving me a chance to react. For such a clumsy man, he ran quite well, although this may also be because his body is quite light. If she tried, she could quickly catch him, but he still couldn't escape, and besides, there were marks on his neck. It will be easy to figure out this guy. See you later, spy. Jane wished my lady good morning and asked if she remembered that they were going to the library that morning. And she introduced Sir Henry Austen, the librarian he learned of her visit, and said that he would personally accompany her. Rosanna had already said that she was busy today and suggested next time, but suddenly froze. Why did he put on a scarf in warm weather? The guy greeted the lady and introduced himself as Henry Austen. His voice was also hoarse, as if someone had been squeezing his neck last night, and this was their spy. She met him for the first time. He had previously held the position of assistant to the Duke, but due to health problems he transferred to the library. Austen had heard that she had received the keys to the library, and he thought it would be best if he accompanied her personally. Well, wouldn't it be great? Jane asked. She could just tell him what book she wanted and he would find it right away. What a stupid girl. No, wait. She was planning to track him down today anyway, but in the end the bird returned to her on its own. Now all that remains is to take this scarf off him. She thanked Sir Henry. She heard that he was sorting books until late, but he finished quickly. Everything is fine, the man replied. Although there was a slight commotion, as if a wild animal had sneaked in, the lady told Jane that it was time to get ready. The maid said that she would quickly go and prepare some snacks and said that they would meet in the library. As soon as Jen slammed the door behind her, Roseanne immediately turned her gaze to the spy. Well, then it's time for them to go too, he said to the lady. Of course, Rosanna agreed. This guy was really confusing. The books in the library were arranged according to his own system, so the arrangement might have seemed a little awkward to her. He was the first to volunteer to help. Maybe it wasn't him after all. Maybe he really did come here last night as a simple librarian. Wait, did she really strangle an innocent man back then? And not just an innocent man, but the Duke's former assistant. He also said that due to the rules and schedule of his working hours, the time he can use the library is limited. Maybe he really just has a cold and his hoarse voice is just a symptom, and he wears the scarf to keep his body warm. He told the lady that she should not let her guard down in the mansion, otherwise things might happen when someone could attack her out of nowhere. And start to strangle. Smiling, Rosanna thanked for the warning. Just when the girl thought that it was definitely him, Henry suddenly recoiled in fear, and the lady asked why so suddenly. This place brought back terrible memories for him, of course, thought Rosanna. After all, it was he who had been lying here yesterday. If he really were a spy, then moving to the library would only arouse suspicion. No one would think of taking a lower position. After his father's death, he became the Duke's assistant, but skill in something alone did not guarantee good results. He was 4 years older than the lady and too young to become his lordship's right hand. But age doesn't matter when it comes to abilities. Wait, those are the books she read yesterday. She definitely put them back after reading them, but how did he find out about them? What is the likelihood that he chose them? Scarf. The answer was definitely underneath him. If he is a spy, then he needs to be dealt with while they are alone. But suddenly Austen asked the lady what she was doing. "She's cold," the girl replied, and asked if he could lend her his scarf. "So it was the lady. It was she who tried to strangle him last night," the boy exclaimed. Why does everyone try to throw something in her face at every opportunity? Like she's a target or something like that. Dodging, she tore off the scarf and pulled the librarian by his tie, thus having caught the slob spy. "He's not a spy," the boy exclaimed. If he's not a spy, then why did he throw the book at her after she asked him to take off the scarf? "Look," said the librarian, and Rosanna asked what he thought she should look at. It was a thin children's book, with almost no pages, and even if it had touched her, it would not have caused any harm. He should have said so earlier, but she thought he was a spy and suddenly threw a book at her. What do you mean, out of the blue, and how could he when she was strangling him? And besides, she was looking at him so threateningly. Then why not say everything at once? Why was it necessary to make these strange hints? He was not sure of her, and asked what she would do if he turned out to be a spy. "I mean, isn't it obvious?" Roseanne asked. "Obviously," he shouted, "she should take responsibility for her actions." There was a knock from the side and a broom fell out of hands. The worker awkwardly said that he wasn't eavesdropping, he just wanted to clean up the place. He really didn't know that they had such a relationship. And realizing that he had said too much, the guy apologized and shouted that he was really sorry and ran away. "We need to catch him!" The librarian immediately screamed. "Stop right now!" "Let him go," Rosanna answered indifferently. Henry asked the lady if she didn't understand that all sorts of rumors would start spreading now. "And he's not happy?" she asked. "Excuse me," the man asked. Roseanne repeated that she asked him if there was anything wrong with that kind of rumor. This is indeed their young lady. He had heard rumors that she was relatively stupid and pathetic, but how could anyone even think of spreading such rumors? When I see her, her presence feels almost oppressive and inhuman. And he wouldn't have caught up with him. Anything would have worked, but it wouldn't have worked with his fragile legs, the girl said. In any case, it wasn't the main issue right now, so she asked him not to worry about it. "They had something else to discuss, didn't they?" asked Rosanna, a matter between her and him. She asked him to sit down and relax. "Yes," he answered the lady, "but about what they were talking about." Right, she almost forgot. She wanted to know if he told anyone about what happened that night, for example, the Duke. Sir Austen swore on the honor of his family that he had done nothing of the sort. How could she make such people remain silent? With knights you can use force, with servants, jewels. From experience, she could tell that it was difficult to bribe such people. She would have to start following him, or even kill him. Her face immediately showed what she was thinking, Austen said, and Rosanna noticed his insight. Sighing, he told the lady that he really wasn't going to reveal her secret, although he didn't understand why she kept it a secret. What he was trying to say by this was that, to get her to spare his life, Austen was saying that he was not going to put his life in danger because of her whims. He asked to be allowed to serve her, then he would have no reason to harm the young lady. "No," Rosanna answered without thinking, and the guy, stunned, asked why not. If he starts serving her and then suddenly runs away, what will she do? Keeping him close will give him the opportunity to find and exploit her weaknesses. As long as he can't get anything in return, there will be boundaries between them, as much as a relationship with one-sided use can be useful. It was something she was very familiar with, but what if it wasn't a one-sided agreement? Austen asked. She could give him the most meaningful thing that could be, a reward only from her. So what is it? It is the honor of his family that was eventually lost in his generation. Honor? Asked Rosanna. As he had said, the Austen family had served House Leylaton for generations, but the tradition had been broken there. At first he thought that he would be able to serve the Duke upon reaching adulthood, but he quickly realized that it would not be so easy to return. Of course, being a librarian was also important, but he still wanted to restore his family's honor and serve that family proudly. But she doesn't need it, Rosanna answered thoughtfully. For all his advantages, Roseanne found other capable people who could replace him. Then he exclaimed that he knew her secret, and the girl asked if he wanted to breathe his last breath here and now. Ha! If he kills him, how will he deal with the consequences if the librarian suddenly disappears? Someone will definitely go looking for him. More importantly, after killing an innocent person, he thought she would not sleep soundly and would not think about anything. That's why he asked to make him his man. He is smart, pedantic, and has strong legs. This is also true. He is capable, and he also quite boldly declares his intentions to her. If he is used well, he will become a valuable specimen. Then she asked if the Duke had other children besides her. He would still ask to serve her. What is she talking about? Of course not. She has this Sia, but she still hides it. Besides, she has no intention of winning over the Duke. So, he wanted to serve her only because she was the only candidate for the heir. Hearing rumors about her, he thought that this house was destined to be enslaved by the Emperor, but after meeting her personally, he realized the opposite. So that was why his family had served the Leylaton house for so many years. He understood the true nature of this family. She asked him to keep this secret carefully, otherwise, if it leaked out, he would become the first suspect. Rosanna will tell the Duke to find a new librarian, that's it. If he had given her a different answer, she would have rejected him completely, so he should not forget about his desire to restore the family's honor. And with his intention to serve her for this reason alone, Sir Austen vowed that he would follow her to the end. As the lady said, if there were other candidates for the role of heir and not his life in her hands, then he would not serve her. However, under different circumstances and with this knowledge, he would have chosen her, regardless of how many children the Duke had. Because no one could surpass her, she is definitely not the type to end her life simply as the head of the family. For wherever she ends up, she is destined to become the pinnacle of this empire. What's with that grin? Asked Rosanna. Oh, nothing special. As a small test, she gave him a task and asked if the servant who had cleaned earlier remembered his face. Well, yes, Henry answered. She ordered to catch him. He might not be able to do it alone, so she ordered to take the knights with him. But she then told him to just leave him, didn't she? The guy asked. He is the spy, explained Rosanna. She was almost ready to kill him because of the strange effect he had. Austen asked why she was only speaking now. He said that he would catch him right away if the knights treated the order indifferently. She told him to turn to the commander and say that he was from her. Was he sent by the imperial palace, or was it another family that wanted to remove the Duke, or was it the one who lost a lot of money in the duel? Well, she still thought they would know when they caught him. Enjoying it, Rosanna asked how this dessert could be airy, light, and sweet all at once. She tried it in the library, but after that time she couldn't stop. Jane heard that the chef worked hard to create it. Roseanne asked Jane to pass this on to him and add that it was a reward from her for his delicious desserts. And don't you dare pocket it, of course, she answered my lady, and at the same time asked the lady to prepare another portion of pancakes. But as soon as Jane moved away, other maids shielded Rosanna's head from the sun. Another asked if she was hot, saying that she would fan her vigorously while she ate. Yes, thought Rosanna, she did the right thing when she started bribing them. Just look how hard they try. If someone relaxes too much, they will not be able to receive a reward from her for their work, so they need to be kept in check. Jane said the chef wanted to come by and thank her personally, but they ended up agreeing on another time. And here are her pancakes, piping hot. This time the chef made them even more flavorful with wild strawberries and raspberries. By the way, while she was running here, she heard that the spy was never caught. They say that the Duke himself intervened in this matter. She thought Layli was better off in a safe place, but she groaned and told Jane that wherever she was, she would be safe. Now it is clearly noticeable how everyone has relaxed and has not trained, since they cannot even catch a simple spy. She was about to say that they should be ashamed, when suddenly she felt someone's presence. God, it's so annoying, Roseanne sighed. Why do they always appear just when she's trying to eat something? Excuse me? Jane asked, not understanding what the lady was talking about, but at that very moment the lady's hand suddenly slipped again. At that very moment, a terrifying cry of pain was heard, and the maids cowered in horror. They timidly called the lady inside, but Rosanna said, "Everything is fine. The knights will come now." "What do you mean?" the girls asked in amazement. "Look, they are already here," the lady said. The knights, running to the lady, worriedly asked if she was okay. The captain was reporting to the lady about the spy, but then Rosanna interrupted him and said that he was over there, the spy. "Oh my God!" exclaimed the captain of the knights. "Why is the spy in such a state?" "And what?" asked the girl. "Are there any problems?" Answering no, he exclaimed that the spy had been caught and ordered that this be reported to the Duke quickly and that he be brought here. The Duke came accompanied by his subordinates, saying, "Finally, this pathetic bastard was caught." "Well," the commander said nervously, turning to his lordship, "he was caught, but there is one problem." "The problem?" the Duke asked. "Could he be more specific?" The man was embarrassed to admit it. Suddenly, a heart-rending scream was heard from the spy. His hand was impaled on a tree with a table knife and they could not pull it out. "What does he mean?" the Duke asked anxiously. "Does he mean to say that they, knights, cannot handle an ordinary knife?" "That's right," he answered sadly, and then the man asked who had done this to him. "Where did he suddenly fly into it from? What?" Rosanna's father suddenly asked. "Why is she here?" "Is it really so?" the girl interrupted, asking that he wants to tell her something. The lady was exclaimed that it was dangerous to be here, and the Duke seemed to understand what his daughter had done. Suddenly Rosanne gasped and said, "So that's where it ended up? The knife slipped when she was cutting the pancake and she couldn't find it." Which is unthinkable, although no, given the monstrous force with which she squeezed his hand on their wedding day, it is quite possible. But of course that incident was clearly an accident, and all because of his carelessness. Perhaps the spy suffered for the same reason. Her father said that if she wanted to get the knife back, he wouldn't let her stop her. It seemed like it had accidentally gotten stuck too deep. "What are you talking about?" Duke Rosanna asked. "Why should she pull him out?" Then her father timidly asked what she was going to do. At once the spy screamed in pain, begged him to stop, and the Duke asked Rosanna what she was doing. "He said he was a spy," she explained, "so they could interrogate him with a knife." "So what? They won't interrogate him. Maybe she herself needs to find out whose orders he is following." "Who sent him here?" the Duke cried. "If he does not speak, then death awaits him." The man said it would be better to kill him, and then Rosanna asked her father to step aside. He asked anxiously what she was going to do, kill him, asked his daughter, and asked the Duke not to talk nonsense. "He risks his life for this job. What does he think? Is he afraid of death? I thought he would be very grateful to die quickly." "Devil," he screamed, and Rosanna asked him to continue calling her that or whatever else he could. She asked if she wanted her to tell her what happens if someone doesn't want to or simply answers her questions incorrectly. "The first thing he'll have to go through is standing like this until sunrise. She won't even post a guard because he won't be able to escape. After sunrise, they will nail his second hand to the tree, but at such a height that he will have to stand on tiptoe. And then it would be wonderful to switch from hands to feet and also change one for the other." He called her a witch. She gave him a chance to answer right away, while she was kind, and asked who had sent him. "Please," the spy begged, saying he needed to think. "No," she replied. There was no time. She told everyone to disperse. As she had already said, tomorrow they would change his hand for another. "Stop!" the man shouted. "He will tell everything. He will tell who sent him. This is a magic tower." It was she, the magic tower, who sent him. Rosanna's throat caught in horror. Initially, it was the magicians who hired her by order of the emperor, and they were the ones who broke the seal and summoned her every time. This meant that those who could reveal it the fastest would be magicians, and this was the reason why she didn't want to get involved with them in any way. But if you think about it, it was they who sent the spy the magicians, and she are doomed to remain enemies for eternity. Whether they suspected her or whether Leylaten's house had been their target from the very beginning, she would find out everything tomorrow, once the interrogation was over. If it is about the house, then she will have to find out what is it about this family that has attracted the attention of the tower. In any case, it is clear that she will be shackled. Rosanne wanted a drink. Maybe it's just that she's upset. Oh, guys, without them, she doesn't even have a friend to drink with. I remember that they agreed to all get together and get drunk if they got out alive. This is a promise. Can they really not keep it anymore? He asked to be allowed to introduce himself again, Henry Austen, and he is appointed her new assistant from today. He said that he would do everything to make her happy with him, and asked if she would let him help feed the carp. No, she replied. It was her hobby. And he was appointed earlier than she thought. Austen told the lady that it was all thanks to the fact that she personally spoke about him with his lordship. She didn't think that was the case. It just seemed like he valued him very highly, and would have hired him as a personal assistant anyway after a while. Henry was grateful for the trust, but he had no intention of changing his mind, and asked when he could begin today's report. Roseanne turned to Jane, and she understood her at a glance. As one would expect from her, thought the lady. Well then, let's take a look at how their new wallet works. Austen began his report. The spy's name was Gary. He was a magician belonging to the Magic Tower. He ended up in the tower 15 years ago, but he didn't have any special merits. His mana reserves are minimal, so his position is precarious. He worked here for 13 years. Isn't there a mana test when hiring? Rosanna asked. That's right, he passed the test. But the assumption is that the mana could not be detected due to its minimal amount, but he thought otherwise. And how so? She asked. Think about it. Wasn't the magic detector created by the same magic tower? It seemed to him that they had provided a loophole for something like this. Well, yes, magicians really are like that, the princess agreed. So he's accepted? Austen asked. She had thought about that before she heard his opinion, hadn't she? It was a test, but in case he said something meaningless, yes, that was what she had planned. Rosanna then asked what the Duke had said about it. It was true what they said, that he had not treated the ladies in the best possible way, he thought. And he reported that a check would be carried out among the servants in the mansion, and first of all, people who interacted with Gary would be checked. The Duke also sent a letter to the Magic Tower so that they could express their position, but there was no response from them. If it was that long ago, then it has nothing to do with her. The Duke will figure it out himself, starting to grow and learn new things. The tower's leader is Leon, who carefully hides his identity and, with the exception of a few, almost no one knows of his true appearance. Sometimes he looks like an old man, and sometimes even like a child, which makes it impossible to even predict his age. Moreover, it is said that he is the greatest among the geniuses and masters of the Magic Tower. To be able to change appearance so easily and maintain such a level constantly, you need to have a huge supply of mana. If she encounters this magician, her identity will be revealed immediately. She needs to be careful. Austen asked if he could get more information. No need, replied Rosanna. That was the Duke's job, not hers. When suddenly Lady Rosanna was informed that a guest had arrived. Archduke, yes. She asked me to tell him to wait for her a little at the main gate. Not in the reception room, the man asked. No, the lady explained. She would meet him at the entrance. Done, the messenger answered. Austen asked if he should prepare a carriage for her. Why, she asked, but the lady had said she would go to the main gate. But it's nearby, she asked. Why prepare a carriage for this? You can just walk nearby, Austen asked. Jane, let's go, the mistress commanded, and the maid told the mistress that she was ready. Let's hit the road, she said, and the maids followed her eagerly. Henry realized that he too should start exercising. The knights sighed and asked if this was too much. They were forced to stand right at the gate, where there was no place to hide from the sun. Now even the sun is at its zenith. Maybe this is how they are trying to tell them to go away. God, how rude. The Duke said that they were now on foreign territory and should watch their language, and suggested that they remain silent. But despite his words, right now it was harder for him than for anyone else. She wasn't the type to play pranks, making people worry about why she wasn't here yet. Damn, if she changes her mind, he'll have to rely on this device again, and the voice in his head is already telling him to kill. But suddenly the Duke heard the sound of metal gates opening. He thought the training ground was not close, so what was that sound? Have you been waiting for a long time? Asked my lady, and asked for forgiveness because someone couldn't keep up with her. It was her fault that she had not planned to take a break halfway through. It was not they who were weak, but the lady who was strong, Jane said. Chayton asked in surprise if they had walked, and from where exactly. Well, Rosanna replied, she had been walking in the garden behind the estate. But then it dawned on her, she had completely forgotten that normal people get tired quickly after such a long walk. So that's why Henry suggested calling the carriage earlier. The Duke asked the lady if she was okay, and Rosanna had no choice but to play the fatigue of such a fragile body. Naturally, Chayton caught her, and as soon as he touched her, his clouded mind cleared. It seemed to the Duke that now only she could help him, and that this device was no longer of any use. And soon Rosanna told the Duke that she was fine, he could let her go. Chayton asked for forgiveness. It is not he, but she who should apologize. After such a long walk, her legs are simply falling off. She thought she was able to fool everyone. Duke Barthius asked her if her carriage was ready for the return journey, or if she wished to travel with his carriage. Rosanna said that she would prefer his carriage, but they would not go to the estate. And after the man asked what she meant, she replied, "His lordship, that they were going on a date today." "A date?" he asked, stunned, and Rosanna confirmed, he and she. That's what she said, but in that case they would have to pretend to be lovers for a very long time. So this date was definitely just a distraction. He thought that they would ride around the estate and return there, or discuss important things. But this is the place where only lovers really go. The lady is really very unpredictable. Isn't that too much for a simple deception? Or perhaps she, as suddenly Rosanna asked what his lordship was thinking about. Is he afraid of water? He is afraid, Chayton thought, and the girl said that he could be honest with her. They already had enough personal secrets. He didn't have to worry. It would be even funnier if she asked if he was afraid of water. It's her fault that she chose the wrong place, so there's no need to feel sorry if he's scared. They can just take a walk. But then Chayton interrupted her, addressing her as a mistress. And he said there was something she should know. There was nothing he was afraid of. So he asked her not to treat him like a child, which is why he seemed angry when she suggested giving up the boat. "Then fine," she replied. "He's going swimming," although it seemed to her that he didn't really want to. That's not what he meant. Rosanna said they wanted to take a boat and was asked if they needed a boatman. She chose this place because no one would be able to disturb them while they were talking, but with the boatman, that would be a problem. "No, he is not needed," said the Duke, offering to row. Rosanna asked if he could definitely do it, and why not, he asked. It's a common thing, but if she doesn't believe him, he will prove it to her. So this is the real color of the water. In her memory, the water was always burgundy. Beautiful, she thought, and Chayton asked if she was having fun. "Yes," Rosanna answered shyly. "The breeze is very pleasant," although before it seemed that there was not the slightest breath, but thanks to him. The Duke thought it would be nice to find a quiet place, and the girl agreed, and she asked if he could handle it, as usually servants do this. Well, when he was little, he practiced by reading books, because you never know if he might be stranded on a desert island. He had to deal with a lot of things related to survival. He didn't want to die. She asked if he meant the Emperor. "Lady, even if there is no one here except them." "What?" asked Rosanna. "Can't you call the Emperor an emperor? It doesn't matter." This is exactly what Chayton wanted to talk about, whether she wants him to bring her the head of the Emperor. If not, then this is the suppression of his madness. Or just their close relationship. Then isn't he the only one who benefits? Well, actually that's true. As Grand Duke, he knows that the Emperor elevated House Leylaten to this position only to use them as puppets. It irritated her that he treated them like dogs on a leash. It was simply disgusting that he thought they couldn't disobey his orders. He couldn't understand it at all. Thin wrists, small shoulders that would definitely break if squeezed. She couldn't sleep without thinking about how he would feel if such a loyal dog was caught with someone he despised. So why did he feel this way when he looked at her, this boundless rage, this instinctive fear and horror, as if he had experienced it before? "But what if the Emperor refuses Leylaten?" "He doesn't have the guts," she replied. "He's not in a position to do that now." Therefore, Rosanna asked his lordship not to worry about them. She had already told him about this before. Don't give in to weakness, even if it puts the other person in a precarious position, even if that person is her. "Well, now it's his turn to answer questions, okay?" said Chayton. "She can ask. He will answer." Recently, she became interested in studying the history of the Empire, which is why one point related to it came up. She was interested in a story from 10 years ago, when he was part of a squad to enslave the Black Dragon. What happened then? Why his squad? Chayton was stroked by horror, and he was already about to answer, and after Rosanna moved the Duke, the umbrella was pierced by an arrow. Wow, the sun was blazing down. She thought the Duke should use an umbrella too. The man thanked the lady. She had just saved him. Because of the past, he had completely forgotten. And if it weren't for Rosanna, this arrow would have been in his head. There were 6 attackers, 3 boats. Embracing my lady, he asked her to forgive him for a while. Chaitin thought that this was most likely a first for her. He was sure that in her entire life she had never even smelled this smell of blood. After eliminating the first pair, he looked at her, worried that this had definitely traumatized her. The man thought that today would be the last time. The last time. No, it was definitely an animal desire if only he could. But suddenly Rosanna brought his lordship to his senses. Wait, what was he just thinking? Even with the lady in his arms, he almost lost control. Unexpectedly, when he asked for forgiveness, Rosanna hit him. And then a swarm of arrows flew over their heads. How he asked, stunned, and she, interrupting, said that the boat rocked and that's why it fell. But that's not what's important now. That's right, he told himself. He needs to pull himself together, and he asked the lady to listen carefully. It seemed to him that the killers had come specifically for him. This is a common occurrence for him, so he must always be prepared for this kind of danger. O wanted to say that it was dangerous to be near him, but then Rosanna asked, because now there was an emergency. Therefore, I suggested that he sort things out and settle everything, and then calmly continue their conversation. Chaitin was dismayed. He was sure she would be horrified. But maybe she trusts him in this way, believes that he will protect her. He asked the lady to wait a little. He would quickly sort everything out and return to her. As soon as the target disappeared, this boat would be safe again, and with these words jumped onto the enemy ship. What is this? Rosanna thought as she watched. He felt completely different now. No matter how hard his life may be, the killing intent embedded in his sword is very strong, and it is a weak feeling of pleasure. So, the Black Dragon, that's how he survived all these years, despite all these possible tricks to kill him. If she doesn't help him, he won't go crazy, or history will repeat itself, like with that dragon. But suddenly, just squeak and he will kill her, the man said, and ordered her to quickly let go of what he was holding and do what he told her to do. Well, it would have been better if he had just left, and she would have continued to pretend that she didn't notice him. Well, he was stupid himself. He probably thinks he can't beat Chaitin on equal terms, so he tried to take her hostage. But he doesn't even understand, the man shouted that he told her not to twitch. But at that very moment he cried out from a blow to the stomach. Acting with lightning speed, she dealt with the mercenary in 2 counts. The man turned cold with horror at the impending death, and Rosanna asked him to be quieter if he screamed, but well, he would die anyway. He can try to pull it out of his wound, but then he will lose too much blood. Rosanna pulled the hairpin out of the man's chest on her own and swam away from the scene. She asked not to misunderstand her. He was the first to attack her. Oh, and now she will have to throw away both the umbrella and the hair clip. But as soon as Rosanna had dealt with the murder objects, the Duke called out to her. He asked if she was okay. He heard a noise. Everything was fine, she replied. He probably just heard her drop her umbrella. That is, she means it was the sound of an umbrella falling, he asked. If Chaitin had delayed, the situation would have been critical. It looked like the last mercenary had already fled after he tried to attack her. But now he wasn't going to pursue him at the moment. Her safety was the priority. His lordship said he would take her back to the Duke's estate. She was actually fine and suggested we go for a little walk before going our separate ways. But the Duke suggested postponing the walk until next time, and now just resting at the estate, thinking that the situation had definitely shaken her. Does he really think she is that fragile and wants her to rest after such nonsense? She didn't even know that such a level of excitement existed. She hissed. Even after being stabbed, she was told to return to the battlefield, and now, thinking about it, she was starting to get angry. Chaitin asked the lady if something was wrong. It was her first encounter with mercenaries. Of course she should have been shocked. He felt sorry. It was his fault. Rosanne reiterated that she was fine, but even so, if she was shocked, what was his fault? She explained that it was only the Emperor's fault because he continued to send all these mercenaries. He laughed and told the lady that her answers were always unexpected, but it was true, she said. Speaking about her question, he admitted that she was the first one who asked him about it. Even if someone was interested in it, no one had the courage to ask. Well, she is one of those who cannot get along with this curiosity, and as a person who helps with his curse, doesn't she have a right to know? Regarding her previous answer, it may have sounded careless, but it was no small amount of risk. She knows very well how dangerous it is to speak about the Emperor like that. In that case, she should listen to what he is about to tell her and then just throw it all out of her head and forget about it. Otherwise, if anyone heard this from her, she would be in great danger, Rosanna realized. As she said, 10 years ago he joined the Black Dragon enslavement squad. The capture was only in name. No one was destined to return back alive. At that moment, the Emperor brought a woman whom he had never seen before. She led their team, she was a hero, and she was truly incredible. The moment their eyes met, he was overcome with such immense admiration that he wondered what it was like to meet a god. Wait, but if he had never seen her before, then how did he understand that she was the hero? Perhaps it was all because the blood of the imperial family also flows in him, and the hero obeys the orders of the emperor. It's all because they are connected by blood ties, which is perhaps why those who inherit this blood also experience this strange feeling. When you meet a hero, Chaitin believed it was because it was a relationship you couldn't escape. She was also the first person who could communicate so openly with the emperor. Perhaps she was too careless at that time, huh? He had only heard about it from his father, so he didn't know many of the details he had to be careful, Rosanna thought. He said that only the emperor can summon a hero, so does this have anything to do with what he told her? Perhaps so. This hero was passed down from generation to generation, like a family heirloom. In the past, someone stole the vessel in which the hero was sealed, and it was never possible to summon her, and the hero could only respond to the call of the emperor. That is why the man who awakened her for hundreds of years was always the current ruler, which means that to destroy the seal, both a vessel and an emperor are needed. Sighing heavily, Rosanna asked the man to continue. The captain didn't tell them her name, but she was a truly wonderful person. Thanks to her, they all clung to the hope of returning, and the captain actually sealed that dragon. But soon she disappeared without a trace, probably because she had achieved her goal. However, on the way back, the Imperial Knights suddenly appeared, causing much bloodshed. Already trembling with anger and sadness for her comrades, she asked why the Imperial Knights? Because no one was allowed to reveal the true identity of their captain, the Duke explained. A hero should exist only in legends, so that only the achievements of the Emperor should remain for history, not the hero. The situation seemed so illogical and unfair, and he felt like he could change the course of events by breaking the dragon's seal. But he was overcome by madness. His comrades sacrificed their lives just to save him, and in the end, only he survived, returning to the imperial palace. Announcing his return in a formal ceremony was the only way for him to survive, so he satisfied her curiosity. Night. Rosanne couldn't sleep, the fact that they were all killed in the end because of her. Bitch, this is so unfair. And it hurt. This body was experiencing wild pain from a small wound. But they must be in much more pain than she is now, the hero said in despair.